Hello, everybody. It is Sunday, January 19th. I am Promise, and this is my co-host today, Forrest. I'm always excited to do the show with Forrest. It's going to be a fun time. We already have Theist on the
Thank
line,
you.
but if you want to get your call in, it's 720-619-2288. I want to say before we start taking calls, I feel like it's really appropriate that you and I are co-hosting today because I think this is true for you. You and I would not be here if it weren't for TikTok. And
True. Very true.
TikTok died and resurrected in the last 24 hours.
Like
There's
Jesus.
a lot of
Yeah.
things. TikTok came back faster than Jesus, actually. Let's be
True.
clear about that.
Only took
And
a few hours.
it actually did come back. So that's good too. But yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like it's been a wild 24 hours. I've been seeing your videos. We've been like, what's happening? Is it there? Is it not?
Yeah.
But all that to say, I have a lot of theists that were still in my comment section while TikTok was dead for me. And I would love for them to call in and tell us what God they believe in and why. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
How are you, by the way?
No, for
How
sure.
have you been with this whole TikTok thing?
It was a fun, traumatic way to spend an evening. I think the biggest thing for me is that this shows more than anything. It's a great example or demonstration of Trump's ego being more important than absolutely anything in the whole wide world. This ban was his idea in the first place after we embarrassed him here in Tulsa. And now he has decided that he's not going to ban. He's doing the thing, which is a whole other thing to talk about how Biden is completely just giving him this perfect layup of he gets to be the hero now because he's decided he's not going to enforce the ban, and then he's going to not be serious about it, and then he's just going to let Trump. And I'll just see what Trump does. Like, absolutely just giving him the ball and letting him do it every once. But that's a whole other discussion. The more important thing
a lot of
is that
propaganda coming from everywhere.
absolutely. The more important thing is that this was his idea, and then he got famous on TikTok. He got, a couple, I think, like tens of millions of followers, practically overnight. And then the CEO sucked his dick a little bit and said, like, we're going to allow Trump to save us, and we're very confident that Trump's going to do the right thing. And now we got another pop up today that says, Trump is we thank President Trump for protecting our app and for being a good. It's all about his ego more than anything else. And all of a sudden, magically, just like magic, the whole lie about that app being a grave threat to national security in order to cover up for the fact that several of our Congress members and also Supreme Court justices bought millions of dollars of stock in Meta right before enforcing this ban. Just saying, that whole bullshit just is a fart in the wind. Nobody talks about it anymore because Trump saved TikTok. It is just absolutely bullshit political theater to allow our elected officials to continue to pretend that they work for literally anybody else besides billionaires.
Yep. Yeah, it's really bizarre. It's so weird to watch it just play out. I mean, when that message came up that said, like, what did it say? Fortunately, President Trump is working with us. It was just like, oh, this is just happening right here. They're not even trying to hide it. So anyways, we're here. Anyways, and I'm excited about it. I'm also really excited because The Line has a podcast, and I think we have the links for you guys everywhere. That will be launching tomorrow, and I am sure you'll get to hear us talk more on there. It's primarily going to be Jimmy and Alyssa and myself, which I'm so excited, but we're going to have everybody else from The Line on and off of there as they can be. But I'm so excited about this podcast and what it's going to turn into, and can't wait for you guys to hear it. Again, it launches tomorrow. So we'll have the links. I'll talk about it. Let's see how many times I can mention it today while we're taking calls. I'm so bad at remembering that, but I want to. Jimmy was so good when he had his podcast. He was so good at like every call he'd take. He'd be like, also, Jimmy Snow has a podcast. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm eager to talk to some theists. I'm so excited that they're calling. Do you see a call that you're more excited about than others, or should we just start from the top?
I'll be honest with you. I'm looking through these a little bit, and
I think
line number one confuses me.
Yeah, the second
line
one is looking better to me. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Let's talk to John. Hello, John. You are live on The Line with Promise and Forrest. What did you want to talk to us about today?
That's me.
That's you.
From California, John. Okay, all right. Talking about the natural God. Have you guys talked about the natural God much? I don't know.
Is it?
Uh,
So
uh,
I've heard people say that before, and they mean different things. Are you talking about like Einstein and Spinoza's God, where it's like God is just like this filler word for the laws of the universe?
Exactly. Or nature is God, the universe is God. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Why? Why call it God when we already know what nature is and that it exists? Why assign authority and agency and consciousness to the nature of reality?
Well, about 6 months ago, I wrote a proof of the natural God into a 3-page essay.
Okay. Can you
I
summarize
explained it
your
all.
best point for us here?
Let's see. Well, okay. Well, first of all, let me just, 1 second.
Gotta find the right
Can
page in the
you?
script. What are we doing?
Well, no. Can you Can you accept the definition of nature as encompassing all of the natural phenomena in the universe, and not just natural phenomena here on Earth? That nature is the universe. Can we start with that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. And can we agree on the fact that nature exists, the universe exists?
I wouldn't have a job if it didn't.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, the Christians they wrote a 1,200-page Bible to give a kind of a grandiose explanation of their supernatural God, but they failed to prove that their supernatural God even exists.
Right. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about your thing.
Right. In my proof.
Yeah.
Right. In my proof of the natural God, I've gone at it in the opposite way that Christians went at it. First, I start by proving the obvious fact that nature exists, and then
prove it. What are we
then
doing?
what? Hello?
I don't understand what the point is. I just asked you, like, why do you assign agency and authority and consciousness to the natural world? And it's been like a minute and a half now of like, well, Christians did this, and like you have to understand the universe exists. Like, I would prefer just an answer to my question. Why do you think the natural universe around you is a conscious thinking agent?
Well, I can't give you a Twitter-sized explanation in just a few sentences, but I could give you.
I don't want one. I just prefer you to answer the question I asked.
But I can give you a 1.5-page excerpt of my proof of the natural God that will explain it. Would that be fair enough? Since we've already.
I'm just concerned that you're already starting to talk about Christianity, and Christianity should have nothing to do with whether or not there's this God that you believe in and your ability to communicate that to us. That, like, are you saying that you wouldn't believe in this God if Christianity hadn't existed, which makes even less sense to me?
No. But we're getting off track. But would it be okay if I?
We have never gotten on track throughout this call. That's what we're trying to do. We just want to know why you believe that this God is a God. Why is it not just
agree with you.
Why is it not just things we already know exist? Why is it more than
exactly?
Okay. Well, okay. I mean, I've spent a lot of time writing the essay. I wrote down the exact words to explain what I'm trying to get across. If I can go ahead and.
Dude, I didn't sign up to hear your essay. I just want you to explain to me in layman's terms, just like we're two humans talking, right? I'm not going to throw around a bunch of jargon on you. I've written papers and stuff about my ideas. I'm not going to sit here and recite it to you. Just tell me, why do you think it's appropriate to call the universe a thinking, intelligent agent? Why is that appropriate? You should be able to give me a couple of lines about that.
A couple of lines, the Twitter-sized explanation. Okay.
No, not the Twitter-sized explanation. Just a simple.
Read us your essay by now. If you just get to it, just tell us why do you believe it? Answer the question. Why do you believe it?
Okay, I'll cut out the first. Okay. You don't want me to talk about Christians, but let me explain why nature's a God. Just very quickly about Christians claim that their God is.
That's all we want.
Christians claim that What's that? Hello?
That's all we want. Don't talk about Christians. Tell us why you think nature is a god. That's it.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's so fucking hard to just say the thing you believe. What are we doing, dude? It's 5 minutes into this call. We haven't said a single thing that matters.
You're asking for a Twitter-sized. You're asking for a Twitter-sized explanation.
No,
I'm telling you.
You can talk for 5 minutes if you start answering the question. You've been speaking. I'm going to mute you for a second. So I'm going to explain to you what we're looking for. We're asking the question, why do you think that nature is God instead of just nature? Now, can you please just answer that question? And if you can't, then I have no reason to believe you're doing anything other than trying to waste our time on the show before we can get to a theist who's going to actually answer our questions. So I'll unmute you now, and I'd like to hear the answer.
You muted me. Oh, you muted me. Okay. No, okay, I can see it's not going to work. I'm wasting your time. No, I mean, I could have, if you give me,
I'm glad you see it now.
Well, it's just because you haven't allowed me to speak without constant interruption.
You haven't said anything meaningful. Dude, the thing is, we let you talk for a minute, and you started this whole thing by just talking about your essay, and the Christians say this, and also, all I want is an answer to the very simple question that I asked. You don't have to boil your stuff down to a Twitter thing or anything like that. Just, it's not a difficult question. If you ask me, why don't you believe that the universe is God? I would say, because I don't think that's a reasonable assertion. I have no evidence for any consciousness of the universe. Doesn't really make any sense to me. And then we have a conversation about it. If that's right. Not like me boiling down my ideas. That's just me being honest. And here you are, just like fucking tap dancing all around these ideas. Oh, my essay this and the Christians that. Just answer the very simple question I asked. Why do you think it's appropriate to say that the universe is a conscious thinking agent? Why?
If you could give me 1 minute to speak. 1 minute.
You have 1 minute to speak.
Ready, go.
Jesus,
I'll set a timer. I'll set a timer.
Time me.
Let me
and
get
don't
my
interrupt
timer.
Okay, set your timer.
Wait. 1 second, and I'll tell you when to start, and you can have one.
I've already got one. We're good.
Okay.
I'm going to start.
Ready?
I'm going to start.
You can start with any word you want.
Jesus fucking Christ, just go.
You can start with any word. Ready? Go.
Christians claim that their God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. But because the Christian God is a supernatural fantasy that has never been proven to exist, it is not omnipresent, omnipotent, or omniscient. It's not even real. Nature, however, encompasses everything in the universe, from the smallest subatomic particles to the furthest expanse of space. Therefore, nature is omnipresent throughout the universe. And because nature encompasses all of the most powerful forces in the universe, nature is omnipotent, all-powerful throughout the universe. But nature is not omniscient. Nature is not all-knowing. For billions of years, nature was as dumb as a rock. Before nature created life, the universe was a dead, lifeless universe made of energy and matter. Nature had no consciousness, no intelligence at all. The universe was not even aware of its own existence because there was no way for the universe to observe or perceive its own existence. It could have continued to be a lifeless, unconscious, unintelligent universe for eternity. But the one true God, nature, is so awesome, it has the intrinsic ability to create life, which developed into conscious, intelligent life. And that's the end of your time,
and you have yet to answer the question that I asked. You still haven't said anything meaningful. Also, you're wrong. But like the fact that, first of all, other religions exist. It's not just Christians or bust. And there are plenty of other religions that don't call their God all omnipresent and omniscient and all these other things, including many sects of Christianity. Second of all, nature is not all powerful. It is constrained by the laws of physics. And furthermore, you have yet to tell me why the universe is conscious, intelligent, thinking, or has agency. None of those have been presented here. You just said the universe is everything, and we already agreed to that.
You interrupted me just before I got there. You interrupted me
because you had a whole minute. You had a whole minute, and you said a bunch of irrelevant shit. You could have just said the answer. You said stuff we already agreed to for a fucking whole minute.
Yeah.
Oh my glob, dude. This is a weird way to start the show.
I'm more interested in moving on to some other theists that can answer the questions. And then I'm happy if John, if you want to call back sometime, I don't know if you've watched the show, but like it would really help you if you have evidence of the existence of a God to have an elevator pitch, which can be, 1 to 3 minutes. That's fine. But you have to be able to answer this without involving like I said, does it require the existence of Christianity to prove your God? But then you're saying the Christian God doesn't exist? That's not making sense to me. So I need a better answer. I need it explained directly instead of talking about all these other things. So happy for you to call back sometime, but let's get a solid answer prepared for in the future. Thanks so much, John.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, well.
And so offended, so butthurt about the fact that he can't fucking read his entire goddamn weird dissertation. Just, I'm not into it, man. I don't want to start the show mad, but holy crap, just be serious.
Yeah, it would be nice if somebody would answer. I am ready to talk to Esther if you are on
Sure.
line 8.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Hey, Esther,
Hello.
you are on Promise and Forrest. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing well.
Never had a bad day.
What do you want to talk to us about?
So I've been watching your show for a little bit, and I'm just, every time you make out God, you seem to make him out like he's a bad guy, you know?
Yes.
Which God are we talking about? I think that would be my first thing, because there's a lot of different gods that we talk about on this show. Most of the ones that people call in about are pretty bad.
The Christian God.
Yeah.
Sure, like the Christian, like all-knowing, all-powerful, supposedly all-loving one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just look at like kids with cancer, and that's pretty easy for me to say, yeah, that God sucks pretty bad. We look at kids being abused by clergy members regularly to the point that it's a systemic issue, and that's enough for me to say, yeah, that God is pretty bad, really that bad. We look at genocides that have occurred. We look at natural disasters that wipe out entire communities. We look at basically just the problem of evil, which is a problem for a reason. And that's easy for me to say, yeah, that Christian God is not great. I look at the Bible and I see, hey, why didn't you just put the sentence in there? It's really wrong to own other humans as slaves. Like that sentence alone would have made that God a little less terrible, but that couldn't have even been put in there. So that's my take. I don't know about Forrest, but that's why I feel that the Christian God is really that bad.
Yeah, I would pair it more or less the same thing, is that the God of the Bible, like the God that is written about in that book, is very clearly an absolute monster. And even if we disregard that or say, well, that's poetry or that's taken out of context, blah, 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 any God that would run a world like this is insane or evil or both. And so just I'm not a fan of whatever this God is, especially if it's the triomni God. If it's not triomni, if it's not all powerful, if it's not all knowing, if it's not all loving, then I can still not like it, but it makes a lot more logical sense. But to say that this God is any two of the three triomnies is a problem for me.
Yeah, so the thing about biblical slavery, I do see how that's wrong in like the genocide and all that, but I was thinking about what would I do?
Don't turn around and say it's not the same kind of slavery. It's different now. They were different times.
No. I'm not going to do that. I've watched people do that.
Oh, good. Cool. Okay. All right.
I was thinking, I was just thinking about like, but all the good he's done. Like without God, wouldn't we all not be here? Like,
is that good? Is that objectively good that we're here? If there was an option for a universe to exist in which there isn't suffering and harm being caused to individuals that did not choose to exist, then why is it better that he created a universe where some people are apparently damned to hell forever? Some people spent their entire life being enslaved. Some people spent their entire life being abused. But hey, at least some of the rest of us got to have a happy life that we enjoyed. Well, could he not have created a universe where that wasn't happening? No. People that don't believe something just don't believe it. That's not true. Nobody chooses to go to hell. I don't choose to go to hell because I don't think it's a choice. I don't think it exists. And yet people will say that I am going to hell because of that.
Well, yeah, because you think that. Like, if you don't believe in God, like, in that he's a good person, you will go to hell. I mean, that's your
I don't believe God exists. I don't believe God exists
at
all. I don't believe God exists at all, much less is good or
bad.
It
doesn't matter that you believe he exists or not. It's just that he's real, you know? He is real.
What's your evidence for that?
Just throw this out there. Like, would you do what you're doing right now with anybody else? Like Hitler built some really cool bridges and like really helped the auto industry and did some other cool stuff. Do you think that we can sit here and say, well, he wasn't that bad of a person then? You know what I mean? Like,
But
any monster
but
throughout
Hitler
history
didn't. No.
has
Here's the
done
thing.
some good
Hitler
things.
didn't create an entire human race. You can't compare the little things that
He
Hitler
tried
did
to.
create. He tried
So,
to create
Esther,
an entire human race.
why is it objectively good to create a human race, and why is it not objectively bad to create a human race?
I have a different question after that about the same thing.
Well, it's really up to interpretation if you think humanity as a whole is a good thing. I personally think humanity is great. You can just look around and see all the good things that happen. Most people enjoy living. It's just a little bit of suffering, but overall, the things God has done, the goods just outweigh the bads if you think about it for me.
I have a question. You mentioned earlier when you talked about, unless, promise, if you have a follow-up, I don't want to step on your train here.
Go for it.
No, I'm good. You can continue.
Well, I was asking her, but it's okay. But so the question I had was, you mentioned earlier that you do believe in hell and that people will go to hell, right?
Yeah.
And is this God all-knowing? We agreed that this God knows everything past, present, and future?
I'd say so, yeah.
Right. So then this God already knows who is going to hell in the future, right?
Yeah.
Before you're even born, this God knows everything that your life will be and whether or not you will end up in hell. Yeah?
Yeah, but it's not that, like, he can...
So then, pardon me, this God is making people for the purpose of torturing them for all eternity and sending them to hell. He is doing that on purpose, knowing that that's what's going to happen to them, knowing that that is their fate. They have all the free will in the world, but that is what they are going to end up doing. So this God is evil because just creating human beings doesn't matter.
But look at all
He
the people
created
that go to heaven.
Hold on. He created
Esther,
people
please listen.
so that he could fuck with them here on the earth, allow them to be raped and tortured and murdered and beaten and all sorts of other shit, and then allowed them to go to hell. All of that was part of his plan. Saying, well, he helped a few people isn't good enough. If this God is all-knowing and all-loving and all-powerful, he could have done a hell of a lot better than this. He is either lazy, stupid, or evil.
Yeah, no, but he's God, though. He has, like, the right to do that because he's, like, all-powerful and all-knowing, if you think about it.
Why?
Why?
Well, why
does a God have the right? Why does a God have the right to be evil?
Because he's God? He's not evil. I mean, he is good. Like, think about heaven. Like, all the people that go to heaven and all the good that he's done. It balances out.
Esther,
It's a big balance.
So I have a question for you, Esther. Could God have created a world in which everyone has free will and everyone goes to heaven?
No.
Oh, so there's something God can't do, so this God is not
sense.
all-powerful. Cool.
Well, you see,
let me try to explore what Promise just said, because I don't think you were being honest about it. I think you gave a very standard answer that apologists give, but you didn't actually think it through. Is it possible in this moment, right? I right now am tempted to sin in some way. I have free will. Is it possible for me to make a choice freely that is not sin?
Well, God really, like, he just knows.
That was a yes or no question, Esther.
Yes.
Okay. So now the last time that I sinned, I had free will. Was it possible for me to make the choice where I did not sin the last time?
Absolutely, actually. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And again and again and again for my entire life, not saying it's likely, but is it possible? Just even if there's a 0.0000 a million zeros 1% chance, is it technically, theoretically, statistically possible that my entire life I could never commit a single sin totally by my own free will?
No. It's just not possible. It's impossible.
So you
have
think
to, like,
you
beg
think
for
that
forgiveness, from God?
You think that every single person, excuse me, so you're saying that every single person, no matter what, is going to commit sin, period?
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, then we don't have free will.
Because
you were just saying that I could freely make the choice one way or the other. If at the end of the day, I don't actually have that choice, and no matter what, somehow I'm going to be committing sin, then I don't really have free will. I am born to sin.
Yeah.
Right. So this God made people knowing that they would be sinners, knowing that they would go to hell, and is allowing them to be tortured and to live a life of sin and to live a life that is full of pain and then be tortured forever in the fucking the hell that he made. That's evil.
Yeah, but
that is what that
really
is.
Not that like it's not that bad if you think about it. Like, is it?
How is eternal suffering and fire not that bad?
Well, because people that go to heaven, so like all balanced out. Because like there's people that go to heaven and there's people that go to hell. Like, how do you not understand?
If you go to heaven and you're having a great, wonderful, happy time in heaven, and yet you are not terribly upset at the fact that there are billions of people burning and being tortured in hell, and billions
they just
more
don't
people
know.
here on earth
how
suffering
would you know
in sin.
if you're in heaven that people go to hell? Like you're not there. You're just so happy in heaven.
Oh.
Like, why would you care? Like,
okay, well then then heaven is lobotomized selfishness. If you don't know about life on earth or about life in hell anymore, and you just care about your own happiness, then I think that takes away a significant part of your personality and your humanity. That is, again, a reduction of free will and a reduction of good. That is also evil.
Yeah, but like, what's bad about that? I don't really see how that's bad at all.
Esther, I'm not convinced that you're being for real. I think you're a troll. And what's sad is there are people that actually think this way. All you've done in this conversation is reveal to us that you are whatever character you're playing right now is a selfish, nonsensical. Like, this is to say, oh, it's not that bad. I get to go to heaven. Blah blah blah. Great. If you want to go think that way and be an asshole, then you can do that. But what I'm more worried about is the fact that if you actually really believe this and you're not a troll, then do you have any information to offer Forrest and I that would convince us that this God and this hell and this heaven are real?
You have to like sit down and get on your knees and pray for 3 days.
I have done that.
Why?
I have prayed for more than 3 days. I have fasted. I have prayed. I have read my Bible inside and out. I have studied it. I have done all the things.
But you haven't.
Nothing happened.
Like, you got to do it better.
No, I did.
I don't think you did it well enough.
Okay, you're a troll.
This
is clearly a troll. I'm ready to move on if you are, Forrest.
No. I am too. Yes, that's the thing about this is that like we talk about these things from time to time. We get troll calls all the time. But the issue is it's this pose law where like no matter what. Yeah, see, I mean, no matter what it is, I just dropped it. Everything that Esther was saying here is stuff that we have heard before from serious people. It sucks. Yeah, it sucks that I've had to say this on like the past 4 or 5 shows, but like that's the issue is that like actual real serious Christians believe exactly what this person was just pretending to believe in order to try to, I don't know what he's getting off to by having fun on the internet, but like that's the problem for me. So I'm glad to have the call. It sucks that that's how this person chose to spend their time. But I'm glad to take the call because there are plenty of Christians that really do believe that way. And I want them to hear those responses.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on that note, we have somebody that wants to talk about how intelligent design is far better model than evolution. So,
hey.
If you're ready for that one, let's talk to Keto. Yeah. Hey, Keto, hello? You are live with Promise and Forrest. What do you want to talk to us about today?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about, I have a couple questions about how Forrest can think that evolution, and you too, how you guys can think evolution is like a sufficient model for, just going about the world pretty much.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
What are your questions?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah, well, I was hoping you had a specific thing because I can sit here and just talk about evolution, but I don't think anybody cares. I'd rather deal in one specific thing.
Last time we were on call, you told me to call in and you told me to look at your Reacteria videos. I took a look at that. Sure. I took a look at Professor Dave. I also bought, so I could do my research, I bought a Campbell biology textbook.
Hey!
To do more research, yeah. And you said that if I read the entire thing, then I can get an undergraduate degree or whatever in biology.
Yeah, that's something I've said before. Yeah, if you memorize half of Campbell biology, you have a bachelor's. Is basically what it is.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting through and I'm reading
that's just
it.
Me
and
being silly. That's not serious.
What do you? Oh, I gave my hopes up. Anyways, so basically, I'm kind of just wondering here. So there's a figure in Campbell's biology book. It's figure 34.41. Can you pull that up real quick if you have it?
I can try. Is it the newest edition?
I'm on the 7th edition right now. I'm on the 7th edition. I don't know how far away that is or anything. So.
The newest one is the 12th, and that's the one that I have. I'm sorry, so I wouldn't be able to find this figure. But if you just explain to me what you're talking about,
Also, Keto, I do want to just give you a heads up, just because this is the Sunday show. So this is you. I don't know if you're wanting to specifically get into like evolution and talk about that for a long time. It might be better for you to call back on Skeptalk, because on the Sunday show, we're specifically trying to figure out what God it is that somebody believes in and why. Are you saying that you believe in this God because you think that
because
evolution is not true? Because I'll tell you. So just to like give you an example, I don't know if we've spoken before or not, but so I was homeschooled. I was raised to believe in creationism, and I never learned properly about evolution. And there was a time period when I was no longer a Christian or a theist. I was an atheist, but I had not learned yet about evolution, about biology, and I had not corrected the education that I had. And so in that time period, I just didn't know. So if you had asked me, do you you don't believe in intelligent design? I would have said, yeah, I don't. I don't see good reason to believe that. And if you had said, well, what do you think about all of this then? I would have said, I don't know. I'm working on it. So that's just to give you a little perspective of why atheism and evolution is not one and the same. Like, you don't have to, quote, believe in this thing. So I'm really curious why, for you, evolution is enough for you to believe in an entire God.
I mean, if this isn't the show to talk about evolution or anything, then I don't want to like waste any of you guys' time. If there's another show I can call later, perhaps. I don't know. I don't.
I would be willing to entertain it a little bit. I would rather, like, for sure, if you call me on Skeptalk, we can have a more serious, in-depth conversation about the science. However, in this case, I think, to Promise's point is that, like, X equals 0 isn't the same as Y equals 1. And so, like, even if you were to completely reject evolution, that doesn't get you anywhere closer to a God. And also, there are plenty of theists who believe in evolution as well. That you can have theistic evolution, which is the idea that God drove evolution on purpose. There's deism, that God started up the universe and then fucked off in such a way that evolution would happen by itself. There's lots of people who believe that, like, evolution happens for everything else, but not for humans, that God created humans specifically, but everything else evolved. And, like, so there's a lot of variation in there. So if you have a specific hang up with evolution, I'd be happy to answer it. But this isn't the time for a whole thing about it. That's why I didn't start by explaining evolution. But if you would like to talk about religion and how it ties to evolution, we're into that as well. You have options. We're not cutting you off entirely, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think I'd be really interested to ask you why you believe in intelligent design. So I don't know if you're down to answer that. Which way you want to take it.
That's a great way.
We can start with that. Yeah, we can start with that.
So why do you believe in intelligent design?
Yeah, there's like a whole bunch of different reasons, to be honest with you. One is that computer code, and then like the computer code DNA analogy, where DNA is like so it can't really write itself. Does that make sense? Like
it can.
You understand where I'm coming from here?
Yeah, no, it's the old Stephen Meyer argument, and it's bullshit. It's just not reasonable at all. That's not how DNA works, nor is it how computer code works. The people who make this argument fundamentally understand both things. So, like, with one of the biggest things that people like Stephen Meyer and other people from the Discovery Institute who use this argument all the time, is one of the things they fundamentally understand is, number one, computer code can actually improve through random changes. There are genetic algorithms that do that use really evolutionary framework to cause more or less random changes in computer code to try different things out and to improve an algorithm, to improve code better. I am not a computer guy. I'm not a software engineer. I don't know how this works for her. I just know that's a possibility because I've made several videos about that and had several software engineers come in my comment section and say, hey, by the way, we do this exactly. I think Godless Engineer is a software engineer, if I remember correctly. So call him and talk about that. But also from my perspective, from looking at DNA, actually, yes, more or less random changes through mutations can actually improve DNA. And also we know that DNA can self-assemble. And we also know that RNA self-replicates. And we understand how these things come into existence, how they create more of themselves, and how changes to them can actually be beneficial, and how new genes can come into existence more or less de novo. And so just this entire analogy makes absolutely no sense. I recommend you lose it. But if you want to dig into it more, you don't have to take my word for it. I'm just some guy.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I'm hearing you out and everything, and I want to be as honest as possible here. I just don't believe that your stance on that specific subject, it doesn't really have much ground. You said yourself you're not really a computer guy, so how could you be knowledgeable on whether or not it can be comparable to computer code? Do you even know what an if-else statement is, or?
Then why are we comparing it to code if it's not actually code? It is. That's like
to me,
it's like that's a really weird comparison.
You have like the TACIS.
Can you prove that?
Yeah, I mean, you can literally see when people analyze DNA, it's an actual code. There's like sequences of characters or the 4 characters, and that can be described as sort of code. It's kind of like a quantum computer. You know how like a normal computer has zeros and ones? This is sort of like a quantum computer where it has like a multitude of certain singularities. Yeah.
So that's not exactly how it works. And so here's the thing with DNA. I can compare it to computer code because I know enough about it to see that there's a difference. One of the functional differences being what you just brought up: the computer code is binary, and DNA is certainly not. But also the way that it's read and interpreted is very different. So like if you want to get down to like getting out of the nitty gritty and just saying they're both kind of codes, they're both kind of languages, they both have some sort of symbolic meaning that translates to some function, I'm fine with that. But still, the issue for me is that DNA certainly isn't this like easy, laconic, simple thing that like just this is the gene and it does this thing and that has this function. It's a little bit more difficult than that. It's a little more complicated than that. There are 4 characters, but those 4 characters actually boil down into sets of 3 characters called codons, and those code for particular amino acids. So there's actually only like really functionally 20 characters that are being used in these sequences. It's just not as simple as saying, well, you change this code and then you change the program, as opposed to you change this DNA, therefore you change the organism. That also doesn't work because mutations aren't necessarily functional. Mutations can be silent. There's a lot there, man. And like by trying to draw this comparison to computer code, even at like the most basic level where it's just they are both codes. Like, sure, why not? Fine. Even if you just take that at face value, it's still not good enough because of the way that they are both used. The way that they both function is very different. Yeah, I go on about this a long time, but it's kind of going to get pedantic real fast. I don't think it's worth anybody's time.
Yeah, it is quite pedantic. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll grant you that. All right, I don't want to be cut on the. Yeah, I don't want to stick with that argument. But another thing is we've never really observed evolution in and of itself. Like we see like these different fossils, and we can see like they're kind of look like other fossils.
Because my original question again is, why do you believe in intelligent design? Because the options aren't just intelligent design or evolution. There's like endless options at this point. So again, I'm less concerned with evolution. Obviously, you can talk with Forrest about that, but I'm just asking why you believe in intelligent design, because that's a whole nother. Because otherwise, you're offering up the idea that, well, evolution can't be true, therefore it must be God, and that feels very much. Yeah,
that's where I'm coming from. Is like not only is what you said not true, but it's also not important.
No.
Even if we had absolutely no fossils, which we have observed evolution, but even if we hadn't, even if we had no fossils, even if we had no genetics, even nothing, X equals 0 doesn't mean Y equals 1. So I would like your argument for intelligent design, not against evolution, please.
Well, obviously, I believe in intelligent design because it best supports, like the biblical accounts. I do believe in God. It best supports the biblical accounts. It best supports Genesis and whatnot. And I think that.
I just want to make sure I don't get this wrong. Do you believe the Bible, therefore, you need the way that you view the rest of the world to fit that instead of the other way around? Why are you not looking at the world first and seeing if it fits the Bible? So you decided, like dogmatically, the Bible's true. But how do you know the Bible's true?
Because God, like I've heard God, I've heard His voice, and whose voice could it be if it. Yeah.
So Keto, here's the issue that I have with this. Then is this I appreciate you saying that, Promise, because that's exactly where I was gonna go with this. Is that like you're calling and saying that we don't have sufficient evidence or reason to believe in evolution, which we
don't know.
But it's very clear that that's actually not your argument. That's not actually what you're calling in about. You're saying you do believe in God because you believe in God because you believe in God. Therefore, you believe in everything that God says, everything that God does. You believe in the Bible. Therefore, you're going to believe in intelligent design. You're not saying I have evidence against evolution. You're not saying I have evidence for intelligent design. You're saying what you are saying cannot possibly be true because it goes against what I'm saying. And that's not how thinking works. So I don't know why you would call in and try to bring up these problems with, it's not, because at the end of the day,
you're saying I believe in God because I believe in God ad nauseum, but that's not true. I believe in God because God's real.
It's weird that that's what you got hung up on. But let me rephrase what I said to be a little bit more clear. You're not calling in to make an argument against the evidence for evolution. You're saying that no matter what evidence evolution has, it goes against what your book says, therefore you reject it. That's not a serious scientific discussion. That's not worth anybody's time to sit here and discuss evolution when you don't care what the evidence is. I could show you every bit of evidence for evolution, and you're going to say, yeah, but that's not the Bible, so I don't care. And so it doesn't matter. It's not worth our time. If you want to talk about the Bible, talk about the Bible.
Yeah, but I want to know why
well,
you think
I have good evidence and you have good evidence. And okay, so let's grant that you have good evidence.
I don't need evidence for no, Keto, I don't need evidence for anything. I just want to know why you think God is real.
Why God?
I don't think God is real, and you do.
Yeah,
how do you know it was a God? How do you know it was a God?
Well, because I sat down on my knees and I prayed for 3 days and he appeared to me.
How do you know that it was a God?
Hello, can you hear me?
We're asking the same question. Yep. How do you know that the thing that appeared to you after 3 days was a God?
Yeah, I mean, who else could it be? It's not my own voice. It was a clear, powerful
How do you know that
voice.
It wasn't? How do you know you didn't make it up?
Because it didn't speak the English language. It was speaking like, I could understand what it was saying, but it was speaking like a sort of ethnic tone, if you will.
So it's exactly the same thing as whenever I dream in Spanish and I have a conversation in more Spanish than I actually know, and I know what's going on, but it's certainly not English, you had a dream. And if you didn't have a dream, maybe you had a psychotic break because you've been praying for 3 days and you went a little bit insane. No. Maybe you were on drugs. Maybe there was a gas leak in your house. Maybe the CIA was fucking with you and implanting a speaker system in your house just for the sole purpose of making you act a little bit stranger in your life. Any wild conspiracy theory, any insane thing that actually conforms to reality is more likely and more reasonable than magic. And at the end of the day, even if you say, well, I know it was God, even if we can say for sure that it was some supernatural thing, it could have been aliens, it could have been a different God, it could have been a million different things. You're just prescribing all of this supernatural fairy tale to this one singular event that we have no reason to believe even happened.
I mean, those are very choice words for us. I'm definitely gonna have to keep you in my prayers. I mean, saying that I believe in magic.
Keto,
what do you mean, no thank you?
I'm just asking you why you believe in this God, and if you don't have a good reason for us, that's fine. Just say it's personal experience.
He appeared to me.
Right, but personal. But
when I was on my knees for 3 days.
So Keto, why should I believe you instead of thinking you're just making this up? I'm asking. Do you think I should believe that this God exists? Yes or no?
Absolutely. If you want to go to heaven, yes, of course.
Great. So what can you give me a reason to believe that this God exists?
Well, I can give you a method to believe why he exists. If you get on your knees and in your humility, he will show himself to you. I promise you that.
Yeah, can I ask?
You can't tell me that's not true.
Question there.
I was a Christian for 25 years, and I did that many times. So this is
you prayed for 3 days straight, many times. Yeah, I don't think
more
I can
than that.
actually trust what you're saying. More than 3 days straight?
Is this
you drink any water?
Just trolling us?
Right.
Absolutely not. No, I'm actually like dead serious.
I have a question about this God. If this God is real and like heaven and hell are real and this God actually loves us, why would it require you to do something so insane and stupid and just really stroking this God's ego that much in order to then reveal itself to you? Isn't pride a sin?
That's a real question.
Isn't ego a problem?
It's a very dishonest question, promise. I mean, come on. God, he's allowed, even if you're giving like the premise that he has an ego, he's allowed to have an ego because he literally made us. He literally made the entire world. He can have whatever ego he wants.
So it's the same thing. It's might makes right. It's might makes right. Anything that is powerful enough gets to break all the rules and gets to do whatever it wants because it's powerful, and so it just gets to. That's not
is that like
honesty. That's not integrity. That's not morality. That's evil.
Well, how do you know God's morality if he's like 14 sigma smarter than you are? You know, like he is infinitely smarter than you are. Actually, he knows more about morality than you ever.
Well, then why does it make such shitty plans?
It's shitty to you because you don't understand. Excuse my language. It's shitty to you because you don't understand it. All right, but he understands it and he can grasp it. You can't. You're just an ant to him, Forrest. You're just a teeny tiny little speck.
Why did he create such shitty creations then that are ant-like and can't understand him? What was his goal in creating creations that suck?
Well, my leading theory is that it was an experiment. You know, and even if it is an experiment, then I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, if I get
then you should want to fight this God. Then you should want to fight this God if you actually care about other human beings. If you think that God is real, you should do anything before you worship it.
Mm-hmm.
That is utterly like sad that you would say something like that.
That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing, Keto, is that like you're not
sad that
you're
you
not
would worship a God that makes ants.
No,
right? You're not convincing us that your God is real. You're only further making the argument that if this God is real, it's evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's it. This God, if this God is real, it's insane.
It can't be evil because it defines what evil is. The only reason why you have an idea of what evil is because the devil has poisoned your mind.
Who made the devil again? Who made the devil?
Well, okay. All right. Let's talk. Okay, we're kind of grasping at straws here. We're being quite pedantic.
Oh, no, I don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that part in Isaiah where God literally says, I create evil. We don't want to talk about that. No, of course not. Here's the thing, dude, is that when I talk about God being stupid, I'm doing it a favor. Mm-hmm. I'm being polite. That is my best way of giving this God the benefit of the doubt. Because the other side of stupid is evil. You talk about sin, you talk about heaven and hell. Just take a look at just the book of Genesis, right? This God is all-knowing, knows everything that's going to happen, creates two people, puts them in a garden, and then creates the one tree that he doesn't want them to touch, puts it next to them. Why did he make the tree? Why is the tree important to exist in the first place? Why put it next to the people who literally don't know what right or wrong is? Why tell them about the tree if you don't want them to touch it? Why put a snake in the garden that's going to tell them the truth after you lied to them? Why any of this? And you could have put the tree in another goddamn garden or not made it at all. And then he knows they're going to eat from the tree. He knows what's going to happen as a result of that, and he still punishes them for it. In fact, he punishes everybody, especially women. Why? It's just insanely stupid. It's either, like, again, I'm calling him stupid because if I wasn't calling him stupid, I would just call him evil. That's what evil people do. Creating a condition that causes someone to do something and then punishing them for that thing that you know is going to happen is insanity. This God is either stupid, evil, or both. There's no way around that, Keto.
No. Yeah. I mean, I can tell I can clearly tell you're a tormented soul. And honestly, like,
I don't have
after
a soul.
hearing about...
We don't believe in souls either, Keto. Hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
That's utterly absurd, but I'm not going to touch on that. We can touch on that another time if you'd like, but... I'd
love for you to provide evidence for the existence of a soul. That would be cool.
I'd be into that.
Come on.
No, true.
Yo, how dare we ask for a reason to believe in things?
So you really believe that you're just walking meat mechs, like from Evangelion or something, or I don't even know, and you're just walking around aimlessly like zombies?
I've dissected dozens of humans. I've yet to find a soul in one.
You're not going to find a soul. It's not physical, okay? It's metaphysical. Everyone knows that.
No,
everyone
we don't.
knows. Okay.
We just don't think it's fucking real.
Yeah, everyone except for you. It's pretty much common sense at this point, guys. Like, I don't know. There's pretty much no point to even continuing this call at this point. Like, this is just... It's just, I'm actually like,
if you don't have actual evidence for us, then you're right. There probably isn't a reason to continue.
Wait, probably as a former Christian,
if you can't like just demonstrate a reason to believe anything you're saying, I don't know why you keep calling.
Well, okay. Well, I do have evidence that intelligent design is a better model than evolution for sure. Just by reading.
Weird that we've been on this call for 20. Weird that we've been on this call for 20 minutes and asked for that evidence several times and you've yet to present any of it.
Okay, I'll bring it up right now. Okay, so if you look at figure 34.41 in the Campbell Biology textbook on page 702, 7th edition, you can clearly see that... What do you mean outdated?
Just tell me what it is. Fuck, dude. I'm losing my mind. Just tell me what it is.
Yeah, so apparently 4 million years ago, which there's no reason that we can know how long ago this fossil was recovered. But 4 million years ago, there was a fossil belonging to the Australopithecus afarensis species, I believe. And if you look down the coronal lobe of the skull, you can see like a clear hairline fracture. All right, so that's the first piece of evidence. And then if you look 2.5 million years ago at the Homo rudolfensis, you can see there's actually multiple hairline fractures, multiple fractures on the side of like the coronal side of the brain. Can you explain to me how our ancestors? Oh, okay, another one. Australopithecus anamensis. It's just a pair of teeth. It's just a pair of teeth.
Okay, so
there's no skull.
You have 3 fossils that you don't understand, and that's the reason why intelligent design is a real thing. Is what you're saying?
No, I read the book. I understand it perfectly, Forrest. I understand it perfectly. I'm looking at it right now. It's clear as day.
The fact that you said we have this species and it's just a set of teeth, not knowing the fact that teeth are the best diagnostic fossil for a species, and then you said here's these other 2 things which have a fracture in the skull, which and like I don't understand why that's a problem. And more importantly, the fact that Promise and I both have repeatedly said that even if we could say evolution isn't true, that doesn't mean that God and intelligent design are true. It's not either or. That's literally the false dilemma fallacy. You just glossed over that and said, I don't understand 3 fossils, therefore God.
I understand,
and I don't get it.
So you're telling me that humans, the early humans were walking around with just teeth, with no support for their brain? How are you supposed to myelinate your axons if your brain matter is literally leaking out of your skull?
Keto,
or the lack thereof.
You understand, Keto.
Yeah.
Can you define the word taphonomy for me?
No clue. What do I know that means? What is that?
Cool. So that's a big thing. If you're gonna understand this perfectly, you might want to know about it. It's what happens to a fossil after that thing died in the way into the diagenesis that creates that fossil. Like what happens to bones after death? That's taphonomy. So not every fossil is a complete and perfect skeleton. If we found some teeth of a new animal, that doesn't mean that that animal was just teeth. That's just the part that we found. At this point, you are either the laziest thinker I've spoken to in a very long time, or you are just wasting time and trolling. And again, can't stress this enough. The problem is that I've heard this shit from serious people before, so I can never fucking tell. Because creationists, like every kind of science denier, just fucking come up with these terribly lazy discussions without actually grappling with what evidence actually is. And more importantly, you already said it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the evidence is, because it goes against your book, so you don't even care. There's a waste of everybody's time. It does matter because
evidence is wrong. And you can't call me lazy when I literally bought the book off of thriftbooks.com and I literally watched your videos. I don't understand how you can sit here and call me lazy when I'm literally just making a clear observation. Isn't that what science is all about? No, it's not.
Lazy thinking.
Wait, how is it lazy thinking? How? That's absurd.
Because you're being completely unfair. You just said, Keto, you just said that we only found teeth, and then you accused me of believing that this person was just some teeth. That's lazy thinking.
Oh, wait, I see what you're saying. Okay. I think I get it now. All right, okay, that's my bad. That's my bad. Okay, I'll grant you that point. I'll grant you that.
I think we should move on. Like, what do you think? Promise. Like,
I think we should move on
to keep doing this.
I'd be interested for you to call back if you ever have like evidence for any of these things that you believe in. But yeah, I think
you mean more evidence. Yeah, more evidence, because I already provided you plenty of evidence. But yeah,
any would be great.
Any evidence. So give us a call when you've got that. Thanks.
All right, we'll do. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay,
see you later.
bye-bye.
Peace.
All right. Just a reminder, we have a podcast launching tomorrow. Hey. On that note, I'm really excited about it. Alyssa and Jimmy and I will be on the first episode, and we always have a fun time talking. There's a lot to cover. And that will be out tomorrow, and then we can all watch or not watch the inauguration together, but we'll all get through the day together either way. So, but yeah, we got that.
We live in hell.
More theists.
At least we live there together, y'all.
Exactly. We've got some more theists on the line, but you can still get a call in, I think, 720-619-2288. Do you see a call that you're interested in?
Let's talk to line number 3/13.
Yes. Love it. Amir. Hey, Amir. You are on with Promise and Forrest.
Hello.
Hello. What do you want to tell us today? It says,
Yeah,
what did it say here? It says the existence of a creator is evident. What's your evidence for that?
yes, I'll say the evidence is all around us. The universe, human beings, the ecosystems, physics, atoms, electrons, everything around us points to the existence of a creator.
How?
I guess, yeah. So the evidence would be
because for me,
with design.
I see all those things.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I see all these things, and I don't see it as evidence for a creator. So how are you drawing from this that these things are a reason for a creator?
Okay. Yeah, so in our human experience, my experience, your experience, Promise's experience, do we know of a single thing in our life experience that contains information and complexity that did not come from an intelligence?
Yes.
Just one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which one?
Oh, I would say, cells, DNA.
We know that came from no intelligence.
It's pretty evident that intelligence wasn't required for it, and we have no evidence for there being intelligence involved in it. So, as far as we know, anything.
It did not come from intelligence. How so? I need to elaborate on that.
It's evident that it's like we have plenty of evidence to say that it came about by natural processes, and we have no reason to say that it came about through any supernatural processes. So as much as we can know anything, I would say that, yeah, we could say that's one thing that definitely has complexity and information and is also, you could point to anything else. If you want to look like the layers of the Grand Canyon and draw some sort of meaning out of like the code in the strata there and call that information, and that's definitely a complex system. That for sure is created without intelligence. You could drive meaning from those lines and make a language out of it, but wouldn't make it magical.
That's my problem. Is you're using some really subjective terms, because I could say that I think something is complex, and you might not agree with that. So I don't know how to answer you really. I'm more interested, like what is the, like you said, it's all around us, and I'm saying I don't see it. So.
Yeah, because Forrest mentioned that it's evidence that it didn't come from a designer, but he said that there's a natural. I don't deny natural processes in the world. I mean, there's processes in my computer right now running my monitor and everything. But just because the processes in there and I didn't see the creator of it or designer doesn't mean that it's evidence that there is no creator. So basically,
right, but there is actually evidence of a creator in a computer, though. Like there's like trademark stamps of like the companies that made it. We can talk to people who make them for a living.
Also, like you can watch somebody make it. Yeah, we can observe that.
And more importantly, like we know the things that make the things that make computers are designed by human beings. So it's not like, just magically there's a computer chip here and we don't know what it is, and we know what the things that make it and the things that make those things and the things that make those things, and how we can break them down all the way to natural natural components, which are then machined and created by humans from there. With life, it's nothing like that. We know the things that make the things that make the things that make life, and we know that they come about by natural processes. And we know that they self-assemble by natural processes, and we know that they do the things that life does by natural processes. So like I said, we don't know everything about it for sure, but there's strong evidence that that it's a natural process. Every part of it that we know about is a natural process, and we have no evidence for anything supernatural. So there's no reason to then factor in a supernatural explanation when there's just no reason to put one there.
I mean, there's a couple of things you said. I mean, for example, like the computer, I don't need to see the creator of the computer to know that he exists, correct? I mean, it could be anything. Say, let's not use the computer. Let's say a brand new machine. Let's say a quantum computer, and let's say we found it in a cave or something. We would not assume that this came over billions of years by grains of sand coming and bouncing together, and all of a sudden a quantum computer, a brand new machine, like we never seen before. We wouldn't say like, oh yeah, this came by itself by natural processes. You would say, well, hang on a second, let's take a look at this thing, and we realize, whoa, there's a lot going on here. Could this really have been just by natural processes of atoms bumping into each other? That's my main contention. You mentioned other things, but I want you to just address that first.
Right. So I would just point back to even like because I can just repeat myself on that, but it's not really worth anybody's time. So instead, I'll just repeat myself on the other thing. When we look at life, we don't need to sit here and wonder like if it came about this way or that way. We can actually do some studying on it and learn about it. And we know the things that make the things that make the things that make life. And we know that every part of that step, every part of it that we do know is a natural process. So like, I don't understand why.
Mechanism. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't understand why you feel the need to include a supernatural process when we already have more than enough evidence of a natural process.
Yeah, so you're saying there's mechanisms in the world that create things that lead to life and all that. That's what you're saying, right?
More or less, yeah.
Since we have those mechanisms, we observe them, we don't have to assume there is a creator. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying we don't have to assume there's anything beyond those mechanisms unless we have demonstration of it. There are people out there who believe that natural processes are guided by God, that God is the one who created, who rather than creating life just out of whole cloth, guided abiogenesis, guided evolution, blah, blah, blah. But still, that's committing the exact same issue for me, which is that it is saying it's taking only natural processes and only natural ingredients and inventing a supernatural world around them for no reason. And it's something that you have no actual evidence for. You're pointing to the natural world to justify your belief in a supernatural thing that made the natural world. And that's silly. It's like saying that there are no ice giants in the world. Therefore, we know that Odin is real because Odin drove the ice giants away. That's not proof of Odin. That's proof of the non-existence of ice giants. And you're creating a story around that that's irrelevant.
Okay. Yes, I'll mention. I think the issue is you said like there is no evidence. I think we should maybe done this sooner, but I think we should establish at least what do we mean by evidence. So you mentioned there is no evidence. So I would like ask you if you could define evidence, maybe multiple pieces of evidence. We know empirical. We have empirical evidence that which you can taste, touch, smell, no problem. I accept that. I'm pretty sure you do as well. But beyond that, because I can't taste, touch, smell, or see the creator, but I don't think we stop at that and say, well, if there's no empirical evidence, there's no evidence for God. So I would ask you, is there anything other than empirical evidence that you would say is evidence, and how would you define that as evidence beyond empirical?
To use the most colloquial terms possible, I would say that evidence is just a reason to believe in a thing. There's no touch without a trace. And so, like, if this thing exists in any capacity at all and is doing the things that you're saying it's doing, there should be some reason that that we can see that it's something it left behind, something that it left a mark, some independent evidence for itself. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I would just point to empirical evidence, something that is, somewhat sensory. I also think that evidence, or I should say, like, an idea like this needs to be like falsifiable. We need to be able to say, here's the thing that if I can say this is true, then absolutely this God doesn't exist. That destroys it. And I don't think you have that. I can say that for evolution, and I can say that for abiogenesis. I can say that for all sorts of things. But like that's one thing. Like having something that makes testable predictions is a big point of it being evidentiary. If you have a model that you're able to say, okay, if this is true, then I should be able to see it do these things, and then you indeed find that. That's a line of evidence. Those testable predictions help a lot. Like there's a lot of things, dude, that we could be doing that's better than just I see things that look like they're designed, so I think they probably are. Like that's just not good enough for me.
So yeah, you mentioned. So when I asked you to define evidence, you said evidence is basically just reasoning, right? And then you're saying so with that, there's no you don't have sufficient reasons. So yeah, when you say there is no evidence, you're basically saying there is no sufficient reason for me to believe in a creator. Did I get you there? Correct?
Well, I mean, I was trying to avoid giving like some bullshit, like just dictionary boring, because I can say evidence is like data that's used. Well, I'm saying like evidence is like it's information, some information that is
compelling
used to justify a belief.
Yeah,
that's used to justify a belief in a thing. Like I could say that's something, right? But like then the reason why I avoid doing that is because then we're going to get in this weird fucking back and forth of like, well, the information that life exists is reason to believe in a God. You know what I mean? I'm talking about something. I appreciate bringing up empiricism, but like that's really what I'm looking for is something that actually leaves a trace that gives me a reason to believe in this thing as opposed to that thing. Evidence that points in any possible direction isn't good enough on its own.
Yeah. So Amir, for example, the reason that I believe that a computer was made by a person, you know, like you said, if you found a computer in a cave or something, is not because the computer is so complex. It's because we have all this evidence to support that humans came up with this and built this, and it's man-made materials that we can, you know, see how they're made and all this stuff. It's information that I know, that I have learned about the world. Now, if a snowflake falls and you point to it and you say, look, this came from a creator, it's complex. I have no, where's the evidence that there are creators out there that create snowflakes, intelligent design, you know? So that's why complexity is not a good argument for me, because that's not why I believe a computer is made by a man.
Yeah, I brought up the computer, but I emphasized, I meant like, let's say a new machine that's just, we never ever seen before.
That still applies. That still applies.
Yeah.
If you show me a chair, then I'm going to say, yeah, I believe you that a person or something that a person made that chair, because I know that that's a thing we do. We can witness it. It's, you know, it's not because it can be a very simple chair.
You're saying humans made it, but like I'm talking about intelligence, right? Could it have been something else other than a human, is what I'm asking. You would say probably not, because like chimpanzees are intelligent, dolphins are intelligent, but they're not intelligent enough to make a chair. You said chair, right?
Sure, if we want to go with chair. You'd have to give me good reason to think that anything else made this. My whole point, I don't know if you're understanding, is that complexity doesn't imply creator or not, or intelligent design or not.
Okay, so let's say like when we're talking about like children who first start going into like school and stuff, they learn how to read and write. Let's like a simple sentence like my name is Forrest, for example. That sentence on a piece of paper, does it contain information?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, and is it a lot of information or a little bit?
Quite a bit.
Not much compared to what, though. It depends. If that's
all
Forrest, if that's all we can know.
Forrest said quite a bit, but you said not much. Hang on, I can.
That shows how subjective that question is. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not really. I mean, my name is Forrest. I mean, which one do you want to have?
A lot of information compared to what? Compared to if I was given a book about Forrest, or compared to having no information about Forrest?
I mean, you can say a little bit, a lot.
It sounds like you're saying. It sounds you're saying like this sentence exists in a vacuum. It's kind of like what you're like looking at this from a purely just like philosophical standpoint. That contains a huge amount of information. It implies.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to get to, but yeah. Okay, so yeah, so
it implies that I exist, whoever wrote the I. It implies that names exist, which tells you some sort of societal hierarchy that's going on, that these people have names to communicate with each other. It tells you the existence of language, tells you the existence of writing, tells you the existence of writing utensils, tells you the existence of the technology in that scenario, tells you a lot about the history of that culture, the fact that they would identify themselves in this way, tells you the structure of the language, that it's structured in that way. Like, there's a huge amount of information in the fact that that sentence exists in the first place. What are you getting to? What's the point?
Whole, like, relative to what I'm trying to get to that. So let's just say
it sounds like you're trying to get to irreducible complexity in the weirdest, most circuitous way possible, and I just want to get there. You know what I mean?
Well, you said evidence is reasoning, so I'm trying to use that to get to the conclusion. So if we're talking about a piece of paper with a statement on it, my name is Forrest. Let's say that's a bit of information, and behind that we do see intelligence, but it's a child, right? Say, can we expect them to write a thesis? They cannot, right? Until their intelligence gets a little bit better, and next thing they're in college, they write a thesis, which has a lot more information, a lot more complexity, a lot more structure, and behind that we see a bit more intelligence. Then you push it, go to something like a house, right? Someone might have finished a degree in software engineering, but they can't build a house. That requires more information, more complexity. And with that, we find more intelligence, more knowledge, more wisdom. Push it to phones, push to CPUs, push to AI, push to quantum computing. The more information and complexity that we see in things, the more intelligence, 9 times out of 10, and wisdom, and power and capability we see. So when we get to the most complex thing, the most information-filled thing that we know of, which is the universe, human beings, the brain, the way it rewires itself based on its environment and all the inputs, based on that pattern, that evidence, which according to you is based on that reasoning, what is the most logical, reasonable conclusion to come to based on that pattern? Do we say that, well, there must be a super intelligence beyond us that brought all these mechanisms into existence, or we just say flat out, nah, it's nothing, natural processes, and that's it? What's most reasonable?
So
what's most reasonable is to believe whatever's, yeah, and what's reasonable is to believe what's true, not what we're like, well, I have to pick something and fill in the blank. So
right.
Offering these options and you have to pick one is not an honest response.
Yeah,
Anyways, sorry for
what's most reasonable? Which option is more? Because it can't be both. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it would be. I mean, look, both
it can be
can't
neither.
Be right, obviously.
It can be neither.
Yeah.
Both of us can't be right. My answer is I don't know.
Yeah, I'll answer your question with a statement and a question. The most reasonable thing to assume when you see the whole universe is to continue to assume that there is no superintelligence out there. That is the most reasonable thing. And now I follow this up with a question for you. It sounds like you're making the very common. I'm getting there. It sounds like you're making the very common irreducible complexity type argument that for something too complex to exist, there must be something more complex that created it. A watch needs a watchmaker, and that watchmaker needs a god. And like this, you have to have these increasingly complex. Okay, we grant it. Now you're stuck in this infinite regression. What made God? If God is so unbelievably complex that it was able to make the universe, what even more complex thing made it?
So that, I mean, not getting into the whole, like, the idea of whether God is like always there and everything, which that has arguments of its own. But I'm saying, let's start with design and intelligence. If you want to get to the characteristics of
I would prefer you to answer my question. I would prefer you to answer my question, because we all know you're just going to do the special pleading thing. So I'd prefer you to get over with it, and then we can move on to the next thing.
No, it's not special pleading, because, like, yes, you asked the question, but I wanted you to, like, break down why is it not reasonable to then say, well, yeah, there must be intelligence if we see the patterns in the world around us.
What made God?
Here, let me lay this out for you. You're claiming that the universe is so complex that it...
It's both. Wait, hang on. Who's asking the question?
It's the same question. I'm just rewording it for you. So what made God? Because what you're saying is that the universe is so complex that it had to have a designer, which I would assume that designer creator must be even more complex. So therefore, what made this God?
Nothing made a God.
Right. And so that's what I'm talking about. It's special pleading. Everything complex. That's exactly what I was saying. We all know you're going to do special pleading. Get it over with. This is special pleading.
No,
everything is so complex. Complex things require a more complex designer. The universe is the most complex thing, so it requires an even more complex designer. However, that incredibly complex designer doesn't need any designer. It's the only thing that breaks the rule. So now I can just say the universe doesn't need a designer. It's the most complex thing that made everything else. It doesn't need a designer. It's the most complex thing. It doesn't need a designer. And it means the exact same nothing as what you're saying to me.
No, but that's what I'm getting into. Like, because I said I gave my answer, but then I have to obviously elaborate on it. The idea is you cannot just have like the universe. Yes, is complex. You're saying that. Well, if I'm saying there is a creator that's complex beyond our imagination, you're saying the universe is. The universe, did it have a beginning, or was it always there?
We don't know.
You don't know.
No idea.
The Big Bang is the beginning of the universe as we know it. And there are some cosmologists that would say that is actually the beginning of space and time and everything. And there are some cosmologists that would say that actually the universe existed in some other way before then as well. There's different models. We don't know which one's which. And I'm willing to just say, I don't know. You, on the other hand, are willing to say, I don't know, therefore magic. And I don't understand why you're comfortable doing that.
It's not magic. I don't believe in magic. And like,
okay, by what means did this God create the universe?
The reason why I asked, like, why did the universe have a beginning or not? And it's not special pleading, right? Because I mean, again, let's get into it. Can something come from nothing?
We don't know. Because I don't know what nothing is.
Yeah, we have to define nothing, and then it stops becoming nothing.
I mean, at that point, if you want to say I'm special pleading, and it's the whole God of the gaps, and you're doing the don't know of the gaps. I mean, if you want to go there, if I'm special,
absolutely not.
Don't
Amir,
know of the gaps.
Amir.
What?
Wait. Can
Amir,
we reason?
I don't.
Wait.
Amir.
Can we just one thing? Can we reason?
No.
Through certain
Nope.
things without what?
I'm gonna stop you because what you just said is the stupidest fucking thing I've heard this entire show. I don't know of the gaps is called being honest. When you don't know something, you say, I don't know. And you don't pretend to know. And you don't pretend to say, not only do I know, but I know the guy that did it, and I know the book that it wrote, and I know whether or not he wants me to have butt sex and eat shrimp. That's the bullshit that you're talking about. It's not. That's what the fucking Bible says.
I didn't mention any books.
The point is,
I didn't mention any books. I didn't mention any books yet.
You're talking about, yes, I know you didn't. This is a call-in show where we talk to lots of people. Most of them are Christians. I'm not bringing on your argument. I'm expounding upon it. The point is, Amir, that when we say we don't know, we are being honest. We are not filling in the blanks with any supernatural thinking. We're saying we don't fucking know and we hope to know someday. That's
we're leaving
honesty.
the blank. Yeah, we're just
not.
We're not giving an answer.
We're
withholding our answer until we have good reason to provide an answer.
Evidence for you is reasoning. So can we reason through things to then know them? Is that possible?
I feel like you misunderstood me. Evidence is not pure reasoning.
I'm going
evidence
off of what
and reason go hand to hand.
Reasoning.
No, I said evidence is. I said evidence is a reason to believe. Reasoning on its own is its own thing. So I'm not like just reasoning through something is not in itself purely evidence like that. It's just not. But that's not important. The point is that for me to sit here and say I don't know what nothing is because I've never seen nothing. I don't have any samples of nothing upon which to run tests. I don't know what nothing looks like, acts like, behaves like. I don't know what nothing is. Nobody does. Nobody's ever seen a nothing before. So I don't know what nothing can or can't do. And I don't know if nothing can make something or not. I don't know what that even, I don't know what that question actually means. It doesn't make any sense to me because it's outside of my understanding of the universe. So I don't know what that means. I don't know where the universe came from. I don't know what happened before the Big Bang. I don't know. And I hope to find out someday. I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't know. Therefore, there must be something. There must be something, some guy that can do all this stuff that also doesn't obey all the logical rules that I just laid out.
I'm not asking you to know. Can we make an inference to the best explanation like we do in our day-to-day lives for many, many things? For example, my great-grandmother... Let me make a point. Make a point. Just like my great-great-grandmother from 10 generations ago, am I prepared to say I don't know that she existed? No, I do know. Because with the reasoning, the inference is the best explanation. Through reasoning, I come to the conclusion my
grandmother...
Amir, can I explain?
Does your
great-grandmother
violate the laws of physics?
Yeah, and we're missing a whole gap of logic here that I'm just going to lay out for you really quickly, and then I'm going to mute you. We're missing a massive part of logic in this conversation with that Forrest and I have both been trying to explain to you. So here's an example. If we're at a party and Forrest and I are standing there and there's a person across the room and Forrest asks me, what does that person do for a living? What makes more sense? When I've never met this person, when I don't know, for me to say, I have no idea, or for me to sit there and speculate and say, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I don't even know if the person has a job or not. So what makes more sense? To be honest and say, I don't know. Let's see if we can find out. Or to sit and speculate and try to make something up and then go with it and then base my entire life around that.
I mean, that was a false analogy. That wasn't really linked to what I was saying, but I want to
as an analogy for the logic of giving. So Amir, that's the analogy to show you why we're saying I don't know. It's not an analogy for creationism or for evolution or anything. It's to show you why we're literally saying I don't know because we do not know, and that's the only logical answer to give in a situation when you don't know something.
So
I love that you accused her of making a false analogy because she brought up whether or not a person has a job. When you a second ago brought up whether or not your grandmother existed. It's just you're not serious about this.
If I said I don't, wait a second. I'm going to say something, right? Going off of what you guys just
said. Shall be waiting.
If I said that my great-great-grandmother from 15 generations ago, I don't know that she existed. Is that logical? Is it reasonable?
Does the existence of your grandmother go outside of the current understanding of the laws of physics?
Not my question. Is it reasonable for me to say, I don't know if my great, however many generations ago, grandmother existed? I don't know. Is that reasonable?
Yeah. Of course not, because the existence of your grandmother is something that conforms to our understanding of the laws of the universe. So of course that wouldn't be reasonable. However, talking about what happened before the Big Bang does necessarily go outside of our current understanding of the laws of the universe. Therefore, it's appropriate to say, I don't know. I'm not saying nothing happened. I'm saying I don't know what happened.
No. The reason I'm mentioning is because when I asked you the question about can something come from nothing, you said I never seen nothing. I don't know nothing. So therefore, you never seen your great grandmother, but you know for sure. Because you said, of course not. You know for sure that she must have existed according to certain patterns that we see, the rules that we see in the world. So going back to my original question,
because apparently it didn't sink in. I'll just repeat myself with the word nothing now. The concept of nothing existing goes outside of everything that I know about the universe. Therefore, I'm not saying that nothing never existed. I'm saying I don't know that nothing existed or not, and I don't know what that would mean if it did. I don't know doesn't mean I reject entirely this entire possible premise. It means I don't know. That's why I chose the words, I don't know, because I wanted to say, I don't know.
Amir, why are you? Can I ask you
nothing.
Back to your grandmother or your great grandmother? Why are you calling her that to begin with?
What's that? Why am I calling her what? Great grandmother? Because that's what we call
whatever
her.
It is.
The language.
Okay,
right?
Why? Like, did somebody tell you that you have this great grandmother?
No, based on the inference, reasonable explanation, there must have been a great grandmother of mine. Without the universe.
Do you understand now how that's a really bad analogy then? Because there's do people have great grandmothers? And we can prove it. Do people have those?
Do people have great grandmothers? Yes, they have great grandmothers.
And do we have evidence of that being true?
I have them.
Do we have evidence of that being true?
The inference to the best explanation, right?
Right. So that's why I believe I had a great grandmother because we have good reason to believe that, because there's actual things that line up with reality. Why do you keep interrupting us, Amir? It's really annoying because you're not answering our questions. You're not answering our questions, and you're not listening. And then when we do make a point, you go back and talk about something else that has nothing to do with what we just said. It's very frustrating. I don't feel like you're engaging honestly in this conversation.
You're not engaging honestly either. I've been interrupted twice.
Amir, Amir, I'm going to just rephrase her question because for some reason you interrupt me less than you do her. Just really quickly, if you have a great grandmother, we might be able to tell through genetics or through genealogies. And also, more importantly, we know for sure other people have great grandmothers. We know people who have met their great grandmother or have a trace aligned to them or who have like some sort of a genealogy that goes back to tell us about them. We know for sure that there are lots of people in the world that have great grandmothers. Pretty sure that damn near every person in the world has great grandmothers. We have yet to find a person who does not have a great grandmother. You may not know the name of your great grandmother, but we have plenty of evidence that great grandmothers exist.
100%.
And here we are interrupting again, so now I'm going to put you on mute.
He just explained to you over and over again.
Right?
You're not being honest.
So I'm just going to mute Amir for a second because the dude cannot contain himself. We know that great grandmothers exist. We've met a few. We have documentation of them. We know they're real. We have evidence for great grandmothers, and we have met great grandmothers. We know great grandmothers' names. We know their hobbies. We know their husbands. Maybe we know their wives. We know all sorts of things about great grandmothers and what they are and who they are and where they come from and where they went. Do that for God. Show me the evidence of a God, the documentation of a God, all the logs and data and records that we have of gods, and all the universe that these gods have all the universes that these gods have made. Show me how every universe has a traceable God, and therefore it's reasonable to assume, just like with a great grandmother, that this universe has a God. Turn it over to you, Amir.
Yes, and that wasn't answering my question. Every time I try to make an argument, you guys mute. That's not fair. That's disingenuous.
Are you going to answer my question, or are we done with the call?
Are we going to answer my question? Are we going to engage? Respectfully.
This is not your show, Amir.
You didn't
Are you
listen
going
to
to
him,
answer the
did you,
question that
Amir?
I just... No, he was waiting for his turn to talk. I tell you what.
He doesn't know
if
what you asked.
Well, indeed, it doesn't matter who's
I was going to say,
doesn't matter whose show it is.
Amir, if you can repeat my question back to me, I will continue talking to you. If not, I think we're
If you
done.
can answer mine, we can get somewhere. Hopefully.
What question did I just ask you, Amir?
What question did I pose to you? Can something come from nothing, man?
Yeah, so you don't care. You don't
Amir,
care about this
you're not
conversation.
You
Just
answered
talk.
that, and now you can't even tell Forrest what he asked you. If you can, I answered you. I said that I don't think something can come from nothing because I have no reason to think that. And I don't know what nothing is. So just the question alone, I disagree with. Can you tell me what Forrest just asked you?
Well, this
And if
is
you
why I'm
can't,
drawing
then
the
I'm done with this
analogy.
call. Can
Right,
you
this
tell
is
me
why I'm
what
drawing
Forrest
the
just asked
analogy.
you?
I could have put something
Can you
else. It
tell
could have been
me?
anything.
Can you state back to me what Forrest just asked you, or else I'm dropping the call?
Fine, drop the call if you want to engage. No problem. Not my fault.
Yeah, that's
Amir,
exactly
all
what it
you
is.
had
Yes,
to do was say what Forrest said. That's so infuriating.
It's the constant bullshit of like, if you don't stoop to my level and wallow in the same shit, then that's proof that I've won because you couldn't do the thing that I demanded you to do on Not My Show. We asked a simple question, you couldn't keep up with it. Try again next time, Amir, or don't. Don't is also fine because holy fuck,
Yeah.
nobody learned anything for 30 minutes.
I feel like we went backwards in that conversation. Like we were maybe getting somewhere and it just got worse and worse and worse and the listening got less and less. But oh man. Are we ready for another call? Do you see one?
We've got 5 theists on the line, y'all.
Yes. I'm trying to see. Some of these are less interesting.
I'm interested.
I'll take them anyways. But
the
thing, a lot of these descriptions I'm saying, I just want to say real quick that if you're a theist calling in, the main point of the Sunday show is for you to tell us what God you believe in and why. So you can call in with whatever it is that you want to say, but probably what's going to happen is we're going to end up getting to that question because that's what matters more than you wanting to tell me why atheism is wrong or whatever. I need to know why you believe what you believe. So anyways, which one were you saying that you were liking?
Oh, I was just looking through. Line number 19 would be very fast. Line number 23 sounds gross. Line number 24, that sounds interesting. Looking at line number 3 up there, I don't understand what it's confusing, but like, why not? You know what I mean? So sure. It's totally.
Well, maybe we let's just work our way down for now, unless something else.
Yeah, sure.
Unless we start going another way, but let's talk to Tony in Florida. Hey, Tony, you're on with Promise and Forrest, and I'm supposed to remember to tell you that we have a podcast launching tomorrow. So,
oh shit,
you should check that out. Isn't that exciting? Tony, are you there? I know that news was so exciting; it probably took your breath away. But what's your question for us today, Tony?
If your phone is asleep, I can't hear you. There we go.
Oh, we've got a voice disguiser, I think, potentially.
Yeah, I was gonna say the long delay and then the very weird voice that came through. Why not use your real voice, Tony? Like, what's the point? Because like the call screen here is long as shit, and it sounds like you're trying to get somewhere either very, very convoluted or just try to make some bullshit talking a point about how secularism is a problem. Like, why the voice disguiser? Why the whole thing? Why not just come out with an argument?
Why does the face look like Easter Island?
Yeah, see, it's you've been on the. What gets me, Tony, is that you've been on hold for an hour and 40 minutes. An hour and 40 minutes of your life. There's nothing after death. It all just goes black. And this is the little bit of time that you have to enjoy yourself. And for an hour and 40 minutes, you've been sitting here waiting to use a voice disguiser to say nonsense on the internet. Is that really what's going on with you? Like, this is the peak of your existence at this moment? This is how you want to spend this brief, precious moment in the sun doing this?
Straight on the line. Straight on the line.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's this is what your life is.
Waited all that time.
I'm here really doing something that I care about, that I'm passionate about. When I'm done with this, I'm gonna do things that I love, and I'm gonna spend time with my wife. Like, I'm gonna have a happy day. An hour and 45 minutes of your life gone. You don't get that time back, and it's all done when you're done. And you just that's it. Imagine what you could have done, the art you could have created, the people you could have hugged, the time you could have spent just masturbating. anything besides an hour and 45 minutes. So you could
That's
sit here
wild.
and spew some. Like, what's going on with you, man? I hope things get better for Tony.
Whoa. You don't know that he wasn't doing that while he was waiting.
I was about to say,
Truth.
we don't know
Truth.
that some of that wasn't happening. Oh, man. Okay, well, shall we move on, I guess?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Trump winners they're winning so hard that they have nothing to do with their lives other than waste their own
It's
time.
crazy.
So, I don't know.
Today, I was driving home today, and there's a line of cultists in the parking lot of this place. All these big trucks with 5 different Trump flags hanging off of them. And I'm trying to get home, and one of these just trucks, just civilians, they wanted to have a little Trump train and drive down the road with all their little flags. And one of them pulls out and blocks the whole road so that they can come out in single file and not be interrupted. And turns out, funny enough, no cops showed up to disrupt that or to be like, hey, you can't block traffic for your little parade that you decided to have right now. And you know why? Because cops are fucking in that same cult. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah,
it's the same reason why you don't see
busy.
cops breaking up neo-Nazi rallies or Klan rallies. It's because why the fuck would they take off the hood to go enforce their own themselves? What's the point?
Ugh.
Yeah, not just
So sad.
Ugh.
I know I posted something yesterday. It was like from my drafts. Of course, I was trying to empty my drafts on TikTok. Something about Trump. It was like the eat the cat sound. And it has been brigaded by thousands of Trumpers just being like disgusting and nasty and like he's your daddy now. And it's just so interesting. Like the definition of sore winners, like right there, all of it. It's just like whatever hole is in your heart, neither Jesus nor Trump is filling it, apparently, because you're still having to come, do whatever this is. I don't know. I'm at a loss. Anyways, hopefully we can talk to some actual people moving forward.
As much as they want Trump to fill their holes, he simply won't, y'all. You gotta let it go.
Oh my God, that's so bad. Oh man. Okay, well we've got I don't want to say it wrong. Ina or Ina calling in. Hey there, you're on with Promise and Forrest. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, since the previous caller wasn't that excited about it, we have a podcast starting tomorrow that we are letting everybody know about. And we hope you'll listen. Well, thanks for calling. What did you want to talk to us about today?
Well, first off, English is not my first language. So if I say something incorrectly, let me know and I'll try to clarify. And anyway,
your English is better than my German. You're already doing very well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So you asked in the show title, like, why are you still a theist? And I do identify myself as a theist. I'm not sure if you let it count because I'm kind of agnostic. So I'm a polytheist. So I don't claim that a God needs to be like omnipotent or all-knowing to be a God. It's just like gods are just really big things and they have influence on our lives and we can choose to worship them. And that worship and the relationships that we have with those gods and with other humans and with non-human beings, that's kind of far more important to me than any type of belief or faith statement or something like that. And just for me, the way that I interpret my experience of life, I feel like I've had experiences with divine beings, with deities, and I choose to call them that and conceptualize them as gods, and I see no harm in that. So, yeah, that's why I call myself a theist, and I can't prove that in a scientific way, but for me, that's fine.
Yeah, I think my main thing, and again, if this is just something that you believe that you practice in private, that's not, you're right. That's probably not something we're going to have much contention with. But my challenge to you would be, do you want to believe things that are true or not? Because for me, personal experience is not a good reason to believe stuff. I had those, personal experiences. I thought I was personally experiencing the Christian God for most of my life. Mm-hmm. And then I look back now, and those were just things where I was crediting a specific God with things that mostly can be explained. And I'm left over with a few unexplained things that I have zero reason to credit to anything supernatural. So I'm just curious, for you, is it just that it's a sentimental thing that you find, myth and story helps you and that's why you want to cling to it? Or do you value what is true and what isn't true versus what isn't true?
hope that I do value what's true, but I don't think that God's like, I don't believe in the literal truth of my mythology. It's more like it's ways to explain the world, and there's like truth in it, and ways to just make things obvious and explain some phenomena, and to just show how people experience things and what are good ways of explaining something. And I mean, it's not the same. I mean, a scientific model in the end is also kind of, it's just a model, right? If you have like a model of what atoms look like, and you have these little balls, of course, that's not like what a true atom looks like, but it's a model to make it easier to understand. And I kind of see mythology in the same way. It helps me understand the world. And of course, it's not true in a literal sense because it's just a model, but that doesn't make it untrue, and it's still helpful.
So my biggest issue with that, yeah, it does make sense. I think I understand where you're coming from. And my biggest issue with it is that, like, there is a saying in science, you may have heard, that all models are wrong, but some of them are useful. And so, like what you're talking about with atoms, like, we used to say that atoms were perfect spheres that were completely undividable. And then we learned that was not true. We knew that atoms existed, but they weren't the right shape. Then we learned that atoms had difference between positive and negative charges, but we thought that they were all just swimming together in soup. We called it the plum pudding model, right? And that's not true. But it was better than the old one. Yeah, and then we had the nuclear model, where we know there's a positive nucleus and electrons negative around the outside. And that was pretty good, but still wrong. Then we got the orbital model, the planetary model that Bohr came up with different electron shells. That's a lot better, but still wrong. Then we got Schrodinger's model with the quantum fields of all the, we have the quantum model of atoms. That's the one that we have today. And it's freaking wrong, dude. Like, we don't know why it's wrong, but we know there's more to it than that. And we're hoping to find it someday. So there's never going to be a time, or I should say, it's very unlikely that we're ever going to just realize there's no such thing as atoms anymore. But we could learn that atoms work in a different way than we thought. And so the model is wrong, but it is useful, and it's getting better all the time. It's correcting itself all the time. What you've described here with this God is a model, but I don't see that how it's useful. It doesn't make any predictions that you can test. It doesn't tell you anything meaningful about the world. It's not getting better over time. If it is, it's just because actual science comes in and fills in some blank and you have to get rid of a part of it. It's not because it adapts. It's because you just throw part of it away, because you learn now what lightning is, and you learn what earthquakes are, and you learn all this stuff. It's just a story. It's not a model. It's just a story. And I don't see why that's something you want to stake any value. Stories can be useful, but I don't think this one is.
And I think that's where I would ask you, why not just say that you're somebody that appreciates stories? Why take it to the level of believing that you're interacting with deities, as you said, and then worshiping them, which I'm not sure what that entails for you. I know that's a subjective term, so I don't know what that looks like. Maybe you're describing just normal activities as worship, or just, a focus on thinking about a certain thing. I'm not sure. But that's what my next question would be, is why not just say you appreciate stories, and that's something that helps you process information that science gives us about the world and about people and how we interact,
Actually, I wouldn't really have a problem with that, but I'd still like, isn't that religion? I mean, isn't that in the end what religion is all the time? That we make stories that explain how the world works for us. And if science is like the mathematics, called the rational way of looking at the world, religion is, for me, is more like poetry. For example, when I see a sunrise, for me that's kind of a spiritual moment to see the sunrise, and it's great. And there's this great, huge thing that is the sun, and that is, for me, is a god. But of course, you don't have to see it as a god. But it's still great, and it's the source of most of our energy. And life wouldn't be here without it. And it's like a moment of light and hope and new beginnings. And for me, that is just like a spiritual experience. And I don't want to just, devalue all that.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I love that. I love nature specifically and the awe and wonder it gives me. And that's enough for me. I can sit there and be present in it and think this is amazing. I don't need a story. I don't need to believe that this sun is actually like
You
an
don't need to
entity, a
call it
being
God
that's
to
conscious
think it's great.
or anything. Right, exactly. And so
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to why that further step is needed for you. Or maybe it's not and it's just fun. And if you're just having fun, then I say go for it. I think my challenge is just
Yeah, I don't know.
why
It's a
not let
personal
something
thing.
be what it is, you know?
Yeah, I have some personal experiences that I would interpret as actually having communication with or experiencing something that is supernatural and unexplained. And I'm agnostic in the way that I appreciate that it could all just be made up. I mean, perhaps it's just my imagination, but for me, it's true. So I think it's okay.
Oh, sounds like you might have some company.
Oh yeah, the rest of my family is just coming home. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I think at the end, if it's something that you're just saying, well, it's unexplained, but it's fun for me to call it this, then go for it. I don't have that much pushback if you're not harming other people.
Like that.
And if you're being honest and saying evidence to offer. Sorry, what?
I think that that's the main point, right? If it doesn't do harm, why not? And if it gives me hope and if it makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's fine. If it's just a poetic way of thinking that makes you more appreciative of reality, whatever. I personally find lots of the same exact beauty and wonder and joy and hope that you described without any of that thinking, but that's what works for me, and maybe it doesn't work for you. The issue that we have with it, and like where we see a problem, it's a little bit of just this slippery slope where the more people allow that kind of magical thinking, then it gives way for more problems where people might justify evil or allow themselves to think or do gross things because maybe this God that they kind of half believe in allows it. It just opens up the door for too much stuff. And I'll be honest with you, whatever is going on, I've just got a ton of noise coming from your side here, and it's a bit much.
Yes. No, sure. I think those were the main points, and I don't see that slippery slope there, but I'll think about it. Thank you for the input.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ina.
All right.
Bye-bye. What a super nice person. I love the conversation. Like that is the most benign form of what you could technically, I guess, call religion. And that's great. But like, it's still at the end of the day could be problematic.
Yeah, I think my problem is it can become a skepticism stopper, because if you're willing to be like, well, I'll just think that it's a story and then I'll just go with that explanation, when there's actual explanations, and now you're ending your search for those explanations based on reality in exchange for something poetic, that's where like you said, that's the slippery slope. So all right,
Damn
shall we talk
I want to also point out the fact that I'm incredibly disappointed because after I tried, but even though I am a channel mod, I cannot block Jimmy from commenting in the chat. I was going to put him in timeout, and I can't do it. And I want you to know that I tried. I want you to know that I really tried, and that's what matters.
It's in the chat. I don't know how to watch chat and do the show at the same time, so I always miss these things. On Chewed Gum, Alyssa sits and tells me what's happening in the chat so that I can know. Hopefully he's plugging our podcast. Yes, hopefully he's plugging our podcast for tomorrow that I'm very excited about. Shall we talk to Marco?
Let's do it.
Let's see. Hey, Marco, you are on the line with Promise and Forrest. What did you want to talk to us about today?
Hello, good evening. Yes, so I'm sorry for my accent. I come from Mexico, so excuse me beforehand. So my question is,
as we said to the last caller, your English is better than my Spanish, sir. You're doing great.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been in evangelical Christianity after I had a bad LSD trip and I repented from that personal experience. That was my turning point. Like I had this inner feeling of repentance within myself and before God, so to speak. So my question is regarding confirming the answers in Genesis model of existence, of creation. They usually portray hominids like Neanderthals or Homo erectus as fully formed, as fully intelligent beings. However, they tend to describe them as, okay, there are many races in the world, black people, white people, Asians, whatever. So probably Neanderthals or Homo erectus probably belong to one of these categories. They're just an ethnic group. They're just like, what would you give the response to that affirmation from this group?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so there's a couple of things here that are really important. I'm going to try to touch on as much as I can. Number one, just to answer your question directly, that is playing into what's called the multi-regional hypothesis, which is something that is this idea that different hominin species, so different species of humans around the Eastern Hemisphere, interbred with Homo sapiens, and that's where we get different races more or less from. It's not real. It's been pretty handily debunked, and now a lot of what we call race realists, which are people who believe that races actually exist biologically, which they don't, they use that to back up their claims, and it's bullshit. So Answers in Genesis is using, in this case, a bad understanding of bad science to make a bad argument, which is par for the course for them. The second thing that you need to understand about this is that they do that a lot, where they say like, okay, well, Neanderthals were just humans. And Homo erectus was just humans or whatever like that. And that's a really tricky thing because, strictly speaking, in terms of the biology, anything in the genus Homo is a human. So Homo erectus is a human, Homo neanderthalensis is a human, Homo rudolfensis, whatever. We commonly, today, we use the word human to mean only our species, Homo sapiens. And because of that, a lot of people think that that's all that word means, and it isn't. And so what Answers in Genesis will do is they'll find some scientist that talks about other humans like like the Neanderthals or like Homo erectus, and they take that to mean that exactly our species that just looks different. And that brings me to the third and most important thing, is that even if you were to demonstrate to them that that's not what that means, it doesn't matter, because Answers in Genesis lies about what scientists say all the time. They will take a quote from a scientist saying science doesn't mean anything without proper context, and they'll cut off the words without proper context and put a big old banner that says this scientist said science doesn't mean anything, and that's proof that our religion is real. They are not honest. They are not serious. They have built an empire out of a logical fallacy called the false equivalent, or the false dilemma, where you say either one extreme thing is true or this other extreme thing is true. And they say if we can disprove evolution, then that means that actually exactly word for word perfect reading of the Bible is the only other option, which doesn't make any sense. And they prop that up by being completely dishonest about what evidence is out there, what evidence is in the first place, and just straight up lying about what scientists, real scientists, say about the world. I've done plenty of videos about them before. I would not take anything they take seriously ever. And if they ever quote any scientist, if you ever quote any real scientist, you need to look up what that guy actually said and read the next sentence in the quote, because I guarantee they actually said something completely different than whatever Answers in Genesis is saying. I know that was a lot, Marco. I appreciate you hearing me out. Does that make sense to you?
Real quick before Marco, before you respond, we're getting a lot of feedback. I'm hearing, it sounds like I can hear the show in the background. So if you've got the show playing, please turn that off. Or if you're on speaker, pull us off speaker, because I want to be able to hear you and have this conversation. So thank you.
I'm not sure how to do that function. I'm in the Calling Studio website. I'm not sure if that's
okay.
The right link.
I think you might be able to mute the show. Yeah.
Yeah, just make sure the show isn't playing in a way that the phone can hear it is all.
Yeah, the show so the YouTube streaming, it's currently playing on.
Yeah,
Is
just
that
make
fine?
sure that's quiet so we don't hear ourselves. That's all.
Yeah, you're muted on YouTube. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I watched,
anyway, Marco, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I watched your video on the explanation how this type of organizations like to cherry pick one sentence from a scientist that are explaining something else, and they take a single line out of context to somehow make it as sound as if these scientists are doubting evolution. But however, I have just the theory because I have no specific understanding on how the evolutionary tree actually works. So I thought to myself, well, if we humans have a certain percent of Neanderthal DNA, why should Homo erectus, that is portrayed as fully human, fully intelligent being that was capable of cooking food and some other complex stuff, if they portrayed, for example, Australopithecus as an ape, not a human, so we should, if evolution is true, we should somehow be able to trace genetically that the Homo erectus had Australopithecus DNA to make it more connected, genetically speaking. For example, if we humans have Neanderthal DNA, 1 or 2%, depending on your race, on the country you live in, whatever. So this should also be true from those species. Evolution thinks our ancestors, and answers in Genesis refutes that. So can we link Australopithecus afarensis to Homo erectus genetically, or is that just too hard to get because DNA material decomposes over time?
Okay, so these are all really good questions. Really, really good questions. First of all, there's a few things there that I want to straighten out. Humans are apes. We are a species of great apes. Everything in the genus Homo is a great ape. Everything in the species in the genus Australopithecus is a great ape as well. And so when we talk about this stuff, we'll talk about ape-like characteristics, meaning that we're talking about like things that look a lot like other species of apes or even extinct apes. That's not to say that they like this is just an ape and this is just a human. That's not really how it works. Humans are a type of ape, and we come from apes, and we are apes, and like that's really important to get across right away. Because that's another way that organizations like Answers in Genesis try to manipulate people by saying, well, Australopithecus afarensis was an ape, and that means that it can't have anything to do with humans. That doesn't make any sense, right? As far as the connection to Neanderthals, you were correct when you said that depending on where you're from, you have a different amount of DNA. You either have none or very close to none, or you have up to like 1 or 2%. And that has to do with your ancestry. However, you're going to have a lot more of a closer relation to Homo erectus because it's clear that Homo erectus was a direct ancestor of all humans. And even that sentence that I just said is kind of tricky because it depends on where you put that species boundary. I'm not going to waste your time with it, Marco, unless you want me to. But like where we actually classify different species here is pretty weird, especially with Homo erectus. Because Homo erectus spread all across the Eastern Hemisphere, except for Australia. And there are some biologists that split them up into several subspecies. There are some biologists that split them up into several individual species of their own. There are some biologists that call them all Homo erectus. And so, like, depending on how you're classifying this, it's weird. The point is, we cannot do a genetic link like this because, as far as I know, we have not gotten any Homo erectus DNA from their fossils because that DNA is long since degraded. It's gone. But we can see genetic similarities among human populations today that show us of our common ancestry and show us that we are all related, even the ones of us that don't have Neanderthal DNA. That was a lot. Again, does that answer your question, or did I miss something?
Yeah, it kind of does. Yeah, I would like to find somehow a proof that we actually come from Homo erectus, or more specifically Australopithecus, because if my understanding is correct, Australopithecus is not was trying to walk on two legs or something like that, but Answers in Genesis somehow tries to depict it as an ape, not a human. What would you?
Yes. So
what would come to that?
So Australopithecus is a genus. There are several different species of Australopithecus, but all of them walked on two legs. They were all bipedal. And we know for sure, or at least I'm 99% sure all of them were. I'm going to put a pin in that. I'm 99% sure that is the truth. Erica might have some information on one of them that didn't, that I don't know about, but I'm pretty damn sure they all did. I know for sure the ones that they usually point to, Australopithecus africanus, or one of the more modern ones, like Lucy or whatever. Like I believe Lucy was afarensis. They will say that this thing walked on all fours. The problem is the anatomical data just don't support that. There's so many ways we can look at a skeleton and say how this thing walked. And so, for example, the position of what we call the foramen magnum, which is this hole in the bottom of your skull where your spine attaches. Every single species that walks upright has that hole in the bottom of their head so that the skull or the spine attaches directly down every single time. Every single species that walks on four legs has that thing angled back to the back of the head to make the spine come out of the back of the head every single time. And when we look at Australopithecines, the members of the Australopithecus genus, they have that skull hole down here towards the bottom like we do. The shape of their pelvis is more like a bowl instead of like a chimpanzee, which is like two big plates. The shape of their knees, which are at an angle pointing in a little bit, like our knees do, not straight down like a chimpanzee that walks on all fours. The shape of their hands, the shape of their feet, the shape, like everything points toward the fact that they have a more inline big toe and not a big toe out to the side, what we call an inline halix. And they have this curvature of the foot that allows them to walk in a straight pathway rather than walking, on all fours. What Answers in Genesis does is they take these fossils that clearly are pointing in the same direction as every other bipedal animal, and they say that this is what they call historical science. They say that because we weren't there and we didn't see it, that it's all this matter of faith and belief, and that we are adding our imagination to this. But you could just as easily put this thing on all fours, and you could say that's how it walked, and it was just kind of weird. But that just isn't supported by the data from any other species that we've ever seen ever. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That's just one line of evidence that I am currently trying to study. The other one is a bit more complex because I have no schooling in genetics, but the second topic was chromosome 2 fusion. There's a guy called that has a ministry called Standing for Truth, Defending Creationism. He was trying to debunk the chromosome 2 fusion video from Erica. But that's just another line of evidence that I would like to get a closer look in the near future.
Sure,
would you recommend
I'll
me
answer
any?
this. I'll answer this one really quick, and then we'll move on because we do mainly theist calls on this show. But so a couple of things. Number one, I hate to have to disparage another organization, but just so you know, Answers in Truth are Standing for Truth. You can look up Erica's video about them. They are also not serious. They reach out to serious people, expecting them to not take them seriously, so that they can then move forward and say, these scientists won't talk to us. They can't defend their point. They have actually stated publicly that they want people. They've reached out to me, and I ignore them because why the fuck would I go there to these people that are very biased and clearly unhinged? They have said publicly they want people like me, people like Erica, to not come on their platform so they can say that we ran from them and they can make that their argument. That's just, they're not serious. As far as chromosome number 2 is concerned, one thing that I think is really important that anybody can wrap their head around is that chromosomes have certain markers on them that we can, certain sequences that we can kind of get a roadmap of the chromosome. At the very ends of the chromosome, they have these things called telomeres. And in the very center of the chromosome, they have this thing called a centromere. And so one of the ways that we know that chromosome number 2 in humans is actually the fusion of 2 chromosomes is that in the center, instead of having a centromere, it has a really long telomere. and then it has centromeres, but they're halfway up both sides, and one of them is inactivated. And so you have every single chromosome has this centromere in the center and telomere on the end. This one chromosome in particular has telomere in the center and 2 centromeres halfway up. It looks exactly as you would expect it to look if it's actually a fusion of 2 chromosomes. And indeed, we can see that kind of chromosomal fusion. It's called a Robertsonian translocation. We can see it happening in other animals, and we can actually track it, and we can do it in a lab. We know how it works. It's not like it's this there's a phrase when people criticize evolution, they call it a just so story, which is a phrase from, I believe, Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's some fairy tale writer. Basically, it's the what it means is that this is a story that you tell to just fit the narrative. You just say this thing to make it make sense after the fact. But what we can do is we can see here, this is not just us saying this. That's what it would be expected to look like. And we can do experiments where we make another thing that looks like that, and it looks the same. And so that's where that comes from. And that's a way you can kind of wrap your head around that a little bit more. Does that answer your question, or did I miss anything?
Yeah, so we can just repeat that in a lab to confirm that this is actually possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we do it with other animals, and even in humans. We have case studies of different Robertsonian translocations in humans. In my epigenetics course in grad school, we talked about exactly that. We had this line of people that had one of their chromosomes was actually 2 chromosomes stacked together, and they had an extra copy of this chromosome because it was stacked up and inactivated, and so nobody knew. And for several generations, these people, it was this woman and her mother and her grandmother all had an extra copy of this one chromosome, but they were fused together and inactivated, and so nobody noticed. And so like that's something that we can see happening in humans and in laboratory experiments as well.
Okay, thanks for your response. Would you like to talk more about the logical topic? Or something regarding to Christianity?
I will leave it up to Promise, because like she said earlier, we don't usually do purely science calls on this particular show, but you had really good questions and they were very honest questions, so I'm happy to take them. Promise, do you want to go any further? Do we have to get through the last callers, do you think?
Let's see. I think we've got Theist we need to move on to. I think it was great. If you ever want to call back with something else more specific or a specific topic to debate, then that's lovely. But I think it'd be good to move on to the theists that have been waiting.
Right on. Marco, I really appreciate your call, and please call back next time I'm on Skeptalk, and anytime that Erica is on as well, and we would be more than happy to go over like these little details with you. You've asked really good questions today.
Yeah, just as a quick comment, maybe if I have the luck to speak to you once again, we can talk about faith healings, miracles, cancer healings that people have been receiving that sanity with church. Because one of the reasons I personally believe Christianity is true, or at least some kind of God, is because just in the church I attend, there has been testimony after testimony after testimony of people getting healed miraculously by God, or even levitating in an exorcism. So that would be an interesting topic to touch the next time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Welcome
to call back
to talk about
anytime. That. And I have True Gum on Tuesday nights. I grew up in a church like that. In fact, I went to a school of, it's called I don't want to say the whole name of it, but it has the word supernatural, and it's all about learning how to faith heal and all of those supernatural acts. So I would love the conversation. You're welcome to call back in the future. Thanks so much, Marco.
Yeah. Please do call back with that, Marco.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you later.
Goodbye.
It was not Ralph Waldo Emerson. People are saying it's Rudyard Kipling that wrote Just So stories. I don't know for sure, but like it was one of them. One of these fucking guys, whatever.
One of the old classics. All right, let's talk to. Do we want to talk? I guess we'll take this one and see how it goes.
Yeah, why not? That's what I was saying. It sounds gross. It sounds really gross.
I know. It really does. Hey, Brian, you are on with Promise and Forrest. And before we go further, I do want to let you know, because I haven't said this enough times yet, that we have a podcast launching tomorrow. What do you want to talk to us about today?
Well, I was just, one of the things I've been calling for like a few months, and I'm trying to get to the point that it's very easy to criticize Christianity because we have a specific doctrine. But one of the problems that I have is that if we leave Christianity, okay, the ideas that people have can be way more dangerous than even Christianity. For example, you guys talk about bodily autonomy. Now, I'm going to explain this really quick. If you're out, let's just say you had a farm and you were out, grabbing corn, and someone put a gun to your head, and for 30% of the time they had a gun to your head and took everything that you made, that you picked. Is that against your bodily autonomy?
Yes.
That's what taxes are. It's so to say
that's dumb.
Bodily that's I'm sorry, what's that?
That's a dumb comparison.
If I move into a neighborhood,
how is that a dumb comparison? How is that a dumb comparison?
Because it's
that's what taxes are. Do you have a gun to your head? Do you have, if you don't pay your taxes, do you have a gun? Yeah, it is. If you don't pay your taxes, what happens?
No, it's not. So here's the issue: is that if
you don't get a gun
in your
to
analogy, in your analogy where I'm out picking crops and someone holds a gun to my head and takes 30% of everything that I have, that's fine. The government takes 30% of my income for tax or whatever like that. The point of taxes, you can argue whether or not this actually happens or happens to your satisfaction, but the point of taxes is that even though I am giving that money to the government, I still reap the benefit of it because I get a fire department, I get roads, I get schools, I get libraries, I get water. I am still paying for services that I also benefit from and that my society benefits from. Even if I'm not on food stamps, somebody who needs it is getting it. And that is inherently better for me as well because I live in the same society that I require that compassion. I want it there for me. If even from a purely selfish standpoint, taxes are still a good thing as long as I am benefiting from the society. It's not a direct comparison to someone holding a gun to my head and taking my corn. That's a silly ass thing to say. And to tie that into bodily autonomy is completely thoughtless, especially considering what we mean when we talk about bodily autonomy and the things that actually entails in terms of a woman's right to choose, someone with a uterus's right to use that uterus whenever they want, the right to a divorce, the right to so many things that go along with the bodily autonomy argument. No, that's a silly ass comparison to make.
How do you handle the fact that Jesus? So Brian, how do you handle the fact that Jesus says to give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and he was talking about taxes?
Yeah, no, I agree. What I'm saying, I agree with you guys in what you're saying, but you're actually not understanding what I'm saying. It is civilization to have For example, I'll give you another example. Okay. Let's just say
address what we said.
I'm giving you another example. Let's just say hypothetically, like the entire world comes against America, right? Do you think that the government has a right to force people into service to fight against the invaders?
No.
Right. Also,
well,
Brian,
that's the end of your.
I'm not,
no,
so
hold
Brian,
on.
No. I'm the host, so I need you to pause for a second. This is the Sunday show. We're talking about the existence of a God or not, and whether a God exists. You're already just talking about America. So does this God exist everywhere? If so, I'd like to know how you know that, and can you let us know about this God?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to the point of
show. This is not.
This isn't
not.
Politics.
You don't. It doesn't matter.
This is your.
Brian, are you listening to what I'm saying?
No, I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying. This is civilization. So if you don't have civilization,
then you're calling
if you're not
the
willing...
wrong show, Brian. Hey, Brian, please listen to what I'm saying. This is this Sunday show. We're talking about the existence of a God or not. Yeah, you can't defend your own ideas,
so that's cool.
You don't know what my idea is, Brian. You don't know what I think about any of this. I can ask you this question. If you want to answer it, we can have a phone call. If you don't want to answer it, then I'm going to move on to somebody who actually will talk about what's on topic for today. Otherwise, you can call back on another show that wants to take this call.
Sure, I'll talk about it. I'll talk about how Forrest
Brian,
is a bigot.
I haven't asked you the
that,
question yet. I'm muting you.
I'm a what?
I don't know why everybody wants to talk over me today. What? I don't even know what he said.
I don't know what I am. He said I'm a something and I can't do something.
Interesting. I'll unmute in a minute, second. Brian, my question for
Yeah, we'll
you,
get there.
we'll start with question 1, and once you answer it, then we'll get to question 2. Question number 1 is, do you believe in a God that you think Forrest and I should believe in?
No, I would never expect anybody to believe in anything, but you need to question your own beliefs.
Okay. Do you think that you have good reasons to believe what you believe, Brian? Do you think you have a good reason to believe in the existence of a God?
Yes.
Okay, cool. What's your reason for believing in that God?
So the reasons I believe in a God is because I haven't found anything that's better than what I believe, and anything that people talk about, like as you guys do on the line all the time, is contradictory to everything that is civilized and holds a standard to society. So therefore, if you want to destroy things, I'm going to fight against you.
So
Not
it sounds
physically,
like from
mentally.
that statement, paired with the original first thing that you said when you called in about how like religion is this thing that keeps society together and gets people to, and like Christianity may be bad, but without Christianity it's worse. I am paraphrasing what you're saying. It sounds like your whole argument here is just from the utility of religion rather than the truthfulness of religion. Is that a fair summary of what you're saying, or do you have something different that you're actually saying?
I would say what's truth to you, because truth is a very complex thing to get to.
So I'm going to ask the same question again, and hopefully you'll answer it this time. Is what I just said a fair summary of your point, or do you have a different point?
No, it wasn't a fair summary, because you said that I think Christianity is bad, but we don't have anything better. And I called you a bigot because you've said obnoxious things about Christianity, saying that the only reason that Christianity spread was because of genocide and murder. Like, that is literally intellectually obscene to say when you have no idea what you're saying.
So, Brian, I have never said that's the only reason it spread. I said that's a big part of the reason that it spread, which is pretty undeniable.
It was not even a small part of it. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea about history. You've not looked into it.
To be clear, you don't think that forced conversion and Indian boarding schools and things were any at all part of the reason why Christianity is so widespread on this continent? You don't think that has anything to do with it?
No, not at all. That's like
okay. Well, then you're not serious. Then
when you're denying reality.
No, I'm very
Brian,
serious.
it doesn't matter.
No idea what you're talking about.
Brian, it doesn't matter. Here, let's get to the point. If you want to stay on the show right now and continue this call, why do you think Christianity is true?
I've got him on mute now. If you want to take him off, he was already talking over you again. And I'm not going to take anybody seriously if they're going to sit here and seriously say that forced conversions at knife point isn't a reason to believe. Right. It doesn't have a major issue. It's fine.
Brian, why do you think Christianity is true?
Because it's logically perfect.
Please explain.
Oh, that's easy to explain. You can't find a single contradiction in Christianity, in the morals of Christianity, in the way that we live our life. And for example,
is it wrong to own people as slaves?
Why are you,
Brian? Is it wrong?
You say I talk over you, but you're talking over.
Muting you again. I'm talking over you because I'm the host of the show, and we have to stick to one point at a time before we can move on to the next point. It's for your sake more than anyone else's. So if you want to stay on the call, let's go one point at a time. So you just made the point that there are no moral contradictions within Christianity. I just asked you the question of, is it wrong to own people as slaves, and has it always been wrong to own people as slaves?
Wait, don't bring him back quite yet. Hold on just 1 second. I'm just going to do a thing. Hold on.
Sure. I got him muted. 1 second.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
now
Brian, do you want me to repeat
we're good.
my question? Yeah. Is it wrong to own other people as slaves? And has it always been wrong to own other people as slaves?
See, one of the problems that you guys all have is you're playing with the word concept fallacy, right? So, for example, in the Bible, it talks about
Brian,
women
this is
are
a really
property.
simple question. No, Brian, this is a really simple question that I'm asking you. I didn't mention the Bible. I'm asking you a question. Is it wrong to own other humans as slaves, and has it always been wrong to own other people as slaves?
No.
Never mind. Fuck. All right. Well, I made a
All right,
prediction
we
that he
have
was
an
going to say
actual-
slavery was different then. But hey,
Let's hear
it turns out
So why is it
The
okay
guy
to own
who's
people
gonna-
as slaves, Brian?
the guy who's going to call me a bigot for not liking genocide is going to sit here and say that slavery is good sometimes. Fuck me, dude. All right. It's a different thing than I thought we were going to do. Totally different turn.
Yeah, so you do realize that actually there was a lot of people that would enter into slavery, and most of the slavery that existed in the ancient.
Is it slavery then if the person is saying, "Yeah, I want to do it"?
Yeah, but that's most people.
No, it's not. I'm asking you a
Yeah,
question.
it is.
Is it ever okay to own other people that don't want to be owned as slaves? Is that okay?
So once again, you're playing with
Brian,
words.
this is a
and for-
really simple question. I'm not playing with words.
It's
I'm
not.
using words to
Hey,
communicate
Brian,
a
you
question
are.
to you
Snow
that you
here.
can
Brian,
answer.
hey, Brian, Jimmy Snow here. Didn't I ban?
Wait, sorry, I muted the wrong person.
Sorry.
Hey, Brian, didn't I?
Go ahead.
Brian, this
Sorry.
is Jimmy Snow. Haven't I banned you?
You guys
Wait,
don't,
why'd you? Is he muted?
I don't think you
Brian,
actually
I don't
banned me.
Didn't you
I have a
drunk
medical
call and I
condition,
banned
and
you?
like things went awry like literally months ago.
Yeah, no, I did ban you. Yeah. So how many
Did
times
you?
have you called since you were banned?
Several. He was
Oh,
on just a
I-
few days ago.
Hey, Brian, who do you
Yes,
know
sir.
has a podcast?
You have a
That's a good
podcast.
What else?
I
Who's got
love
a new
it.
podcast?
I like our conversations. I think we have good conversations. Sometimes I'm a little.
has a new
I have a medical
podcast?
condition, and sometimes I get a little loopy. So sorry.
Well, you gotta
Loopy
make
enough to
sure
say
you're sharpest
slavery
when
is
you're
good
calling in.
sometimes, and that genocide
Right,
isn't
you're
a way to force
defending
people.
slavery.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyway,
it's a
the
bad
line has
time.
a podcast. The line of the podcast. You look here, Brian. Here's what I'm going to tell you. They're going to decide what to do with the rest of the call. But you're on thin ice. You're going to be respectful. You're going to answer the questions actually asked of you. And you're going to spend a lot of less time bitching about, oh, you guys are doing this wrong and doing whatever wrong. And if you do that, then I'll let other people decide whether or not they want to keep chatting with you. But if you don't, I don't like setting a precedent that people just get to call in when they've been banned and just call in anyway. So how about you be on your best behavior and be a little bit kinder and stop talking over Promise so much. At least talk over Forrest as much if you're going to, for fear that people might think you were sexist.
Oh, no,
and
that's
also,
ridiculous.
The Line has a podcast starting tomorrow, January 20th.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah,
So,
it's
Brian-
okay to believe that owning people as slaves,
Okay.
that's not ridiculous. But interrupting, like saying that you might be sexist because you keep interrupting me, that's outrageous.
That's what's
It
wrong
is
with you?
because I'm
not
not at
following
all.
this. Yeah. Yeah,
No, I'll
you're,
explain.
you're thinking that slavery is cool, but you would never interrupt a woman. So that's where you draw the line. That's cool. Okay.
That was weird. No, I will
that's morals.
explain. It's never okay. It's never okay at all, and it's never been okay. And it's in the Bible
Cool.
too to go out. Oh my God!
So then,
can I finish? Can I just finish?
No, you can't.
Like
no, you can't, because here's
Please.
the thing: is that you said that you can't find any contradictions in Christian morality. I don't know where Promise is going with that, because she said that she wasn't even talking about the Bible yet. We can talk about the Bible as well, but also you'll never guess who owned a fuckload of slaves here in America that didn't want to be owned. It was Christians. So like, I don't know, man. I'm not into it. And the fact that you don't think that people being forced to convert on pain of death has nothing to do with your religion spreading, and the fact that you think that slavery is okay only sometimes, though, and the fact that you think that people here in the U.S. that slavery was somehow different than the biblical slavery, which it fucking wasn't. Like, you're not serious. You're just saying whatever shit pops into your head. And I can understand why Jimmy banned you, because it's a complete waste of time talking to somebody who is going to be that dishonest about shit that really matters and actually hurts a lot of people.
they're all heretics, and I would not agree with them. And it's against biblical, the way that the Christians in America that called them Christians, which is a fallacy because it's an association fallacy, that they actually changed the Bible to enslave people. so therefore they're heretics, and I would never accept it.
Except for the parts of the Bible where God specifically tells you how to enslave people and all that stuff, right?
Where?
So you've never read your Bible then, is what I'm hearing.
I have. So there's two different types, right? There's like the people that,
yep.
Like for example, you could say that today that sports players are slaves because they enter into a contract.
No, you can't.
Yes, you can, and that you do realize
you
that
can say, if you want to say something fucking stupid, you can say that. I guess that is true, but like you shouldn't say that.
Yeah, because like most of the people, for example, that came to America, the English from England came here as slaves, but they entered into a contract for 7 years.
Brian,
so let's talk about
what about when Paul directly says that slaves should obey their masters?
Right.
So
here I've got Leviticus
you
44.
are in contradiction with the Bible.
Leviticus 25:44. Leviticus 25:44. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also, some of them by temporary residence, blah, blah, blah. You can will them to your children as inherited property and make them your slaves for life. But you must not rule over your fellow
how long
Israelites.
can they be slaves? How long can they be slaves for in the Bible?
If you were listening, Brian, rather than just waiting for your turn to interrupt, you would have heard that I just fucking said that. I'll read the passage again. You can will them to your children as inherited property and make them slaves for life. They are slaves for life. They are property to be passed down to children. And that is God speaking. When he says this,
that's not for life. That's a lie. That's a lie.
When the Bible says the words, so when the Bible says the words, they are slaves for life, you think I'm interpreting it wrong by reading the word slave for life and believing
because
that it means
it goes together with the 7 years, dude. The 7.
Okay, I'm muting him. He's interrupting over and over. I'm not really interested in letting somebody that Jimmy banned, keep interrupting us. We just provided a contradiction right there, and now we're reading the words from the Bible. It's really dishonest. I'm down to drop Brian if you are.
Before we do, that was one translation. My Bible is King James Version, and this says, it doesn't say for life in this one. It says, you shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you. And to inherit them as a possession, they shall be your slaves forever. So one translation says for life. The other translation says forever. Please tell me, Brian, really quickly before we drop you, when and in what world do the words for life and forever mean 20-year contract?
Because it's already in Jewish law. They can only have them for 7 years.
So then God was wrong. So then God was wrong in Leviticus when he said for life and forever.
Do you not understand
There's a contradiction in the Bible then, Brian.
It's not
That's a contradiction is what that is. So
literally
you're clear. Jewish law supersedes God? Brian, Jewish law supersedes God then? Because God in Leviticus, God says they are slaves for life, they are slaves forever. So is Jewish law more important or is God more important?
What's it say in Deuteronomy?
I don't care. God says in Leviticus, they are slaves for life and they are slaves forever. And furthermore, Brian, if Deuteronomy says something different, that's a fucking contradiction, which you said don't exist.
Not a contradiction. You don't understand contradictions in the Bible.
You're right. I think the word contradiction means when two things say different things, because that's the definition of the word. So clearly I don't understand it like Brian, which the word contradiction means something that goes against my personal worldview.
No.
Hey, Brian, don't call back.
All right. Hey, have yourselves a nice day.
Yeah, we're done.
Don't call back.
We're done.
Bye.
The line of the podcast, it starts January 20th, which is tomorrow. It's the inaugural podcast on Inauguration Day. Isn't that crazy, everybody? Also,
look at us.
Hebrew slaves. The 7-year contract only applied to Hebrew slaves, and if you didn't use the loophole. And also, if you wanted to talk about biblical slavery and who is slaves, I think we almost do too much on this, talking about like the Exodus 21 slavery. I think we should talk more about biblical marriage and the fact that it was literally property of if you were a woman, were the property of your father until that property was transferred to the new husband.
The problem is too many people will
slavery.
still agree with that.
Right? You can rape a virgin and pay her daughter or her father some money, and then that's your property.
The most common form of biblical slavery is certainly marriage. You didn't have any free will. But what's more important here is that the Line has a podcast. And I'm not saying that's all marriage. I know there's some people like, yeah, marriage is just slavery. I think, people get married now in non-slavey ways. Not me. I'm definitely going to submit. But the Line has a podcast starting on January 20th.
Thanks.
By the way, I told them not to tell you all who was calling, and I was going to wait. Then I realized that this was a banned caller. I was just going to wait until, because you were complaining that you couldn't ban me from chat. And I was going to pop on and go, you can't even stop me from getting on the phone.
It's funny. Several times in this very call, I have wanted to just click the drop button for funsies, just while you were speaking. But I figure, letting people know that the Line has a podcast is more important than me fucking with you.
I'd call back.
Look at this maturity.
Wait, hang on.
I'll be honest with you.
Let me go get in my car. Let me go get in my car. Get on the highway with the yeah, you could. Let me go get in my car. Get in the highway with the window down. Put you on speakerphone and have the show playing in the background,
and
so that we
can
have a dog next to the average theist caller.
Oh man, I'm never showing up on that fucking podcast, by the way. I don't know what it is. Jimmy has called me and explained this podcast to me several times while I was like days without sleep and very confused and stressed out. I don't know what the podcast is about, and I don't know if I'll ever be on it. Probably not. So like, stay tuned for the podcast. I guess it sounds fun.
I resent that. You have to come be my guest.
I don't know what the point is.
Yeah, by the way, she's basically saying when I'm not on there, you should go on and replace me. But what the audience doesn't know is how non-hyperbolic you were just being, because I told Forrest about the podcast when we were first forming the idea, and then 2 days later called him and was like, hey, did you think about it? Because I was thinking this thing, and he goes, what are you talking about? I said, the podcast. He's like, oh, was that something we talked about a while back? And I was like, 2 days ago, brother. It was Sunday. It's now Tuesday.
I thought it was a week or more. I really was like, oh, you talked about it like 2 weeks ago. And you're like, no, it's been 2 days. I'm like, what is time? I was so stressed out and I'd been up for days and I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, can you just give me some bullet points at this point? Like, just give me something written down that I can go off of. And he was like, don't worry about it. You can be a guest or whatever. It was great.
Someone asked, does the Line have a political show in chat? And you should definitely watch the podcast, because that will be the main focus of current events in politics will be a huge focus of it. So the Line is a podcast. Everybody, there's links in the descriptions. Please go subscribe to the new channel, because it's going to be a multi-day show. We will put some episodes on the Line, but even the first episode won't be, because we're not going to take over Skeptalk's notification algorithm, and that's tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe, because otherwise you'll miss episode 1 and you'll miss a lot of episodes.
Do it.
I will only agree to be a guest on the podcast if I am replacing Jimmy Snow on that episode, and the episode is completely different than any other. Like it's totally different, total format different. Callers, if we're doing I don't know if it's callers.
How will you know?
Completely,
you won't have listened to
different.
it, so we'll just
and
tell
we
you
don't
that we're
announce
doing a
that.
completely different one.
Yes, and we don't announce that in any way. The title's the same, the names are the same, everything is exactly the same. I just ruin it for that episode. That is where I will be a guest on the podcast. It's the only way I agree to do it.
I'm going to launch new project after new project after new project until the day that I make one that Forrest goes, I'm going to take this one seriously, and then I'll retire.
Luckily, Jimmy's never going to retire now, guys.
Right, apparently, you're going to try to get me to take something seriously. You'll be the first.
Y'all should probably drop this troll caller before you lose more viewers, but you got a bunch of theists waiting. So I guess last thing is, go ahead. You were Forrest. Tell people your lecture. You were telling me about how you don't think autism and ADHD even really exist. All right, bye everybody.
Oh yeah, that's totally
Oh my god, that's so bad.
I'm gonna return him to the queue.
Can we do that?
Yeah, I just put him in there.
Well, that was a much better conversation than these theist callers that
Fucking
we've been
Brian.
having. Oh, that was
Yes.
rough. Shall we get through these last few real quick before our cutoff time?
I got to say, I loved the amount of people in the chat saying, drop this troll. This is either a troll or a Poe. I'm disgusted in this. This caller has a serious case of co-host syndrome. Like, all the people in the chat just rolling with the joke. Good for all of you. Well done.
Amazing.
Assuming that the next call is honest and lasts about as long as you guys have been doing Theist the whole show, we should probably only really have room for one more, I imagine. So probably pick your favorite.
To the three theists on the line, we may have time for more than one of you, but maybe not. So I'm sorry if you waited a long time. Hang out.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get on, but no promises. You may have to call back next time.
Yeah, and I do want to say the other thing is, again, a lot of them are calling in to talk about something other, to say that because atheism isn't true, therefore Christianity. That's not how this works. So we're going to be asking you what God you believe in and why you believe in that God. So I say we just start with Tim, and maybe that will be like the perfect phone call to end the show, or maybe we'll have to move on pretty quickly. Hey, Tim, you are on the line with Promise and Forrest. We have a podcast tomorrow, so if this call doesn't go well, you can still tune into that. But we want to know, what God do you believe in and why?
Well, I'm a Christian, and thanks for having me on your show. I think that atheism compared to a Christian worldview is demonstrably self-terminating. And that the Christian worldview leads to life and liberty.
I'm going to mute you. So I'm going to try again, because I just prefaced this with how we have to start these calls, and maybe we need to move on to another theist that's willing to answer my questions. I want to know why you believe what you believe. And there's so many other religions, so saying because atheism doesn't work for me, therefore Christianity is not an answer. I want to know why you believe in your Christian God specifically. So let's see if we can get that.
Well, am I still on the line?
You're on.
You are.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll answer your question. I wanted to take the phone call in another direction as to how atheism or a Christian worldview relates to civil government. But that's okay. I have plenty of good reasons to believe in God. I think that it is self-evidently true. The founders of our nation wrote it this way, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and property.
Why did Thomas Jefferson pick the word creator and not the word God?
Because God is a creator. I think it's synonymous. You can call God
why did he say the creator and not like the God of the Bible, Yahweh, Jesus, any of that? It's because he was a deist. He believed in a God, but not necessarily the Christian God. In fact, he spoke quite a lot about how he didn't like the God of the Bible and the Christian God, anything like that. If I remember correctly, he was pretty adamant about not being into Christianity. So yeah, they use the word creator, and yeah, they use that kind of terminology. The same reason why, Charles Darwin, who he wrote on The Origin of Species, by several editions later, he included the word creator near the end, just to kind of like appease people and to give them something to hold on to. Doesn't necessarily mean that they were Christian or sticking to Christian values or anything like that. More importantly, I don't think this answers Promise's question, which is just like,
yeah, it doesn't.
Why do you believe in this thing?
I mean, I can talk about atheism with you. Christianity. Yeah, let me relate it to what I was saying about the Declaration of Independence and everything. I believe.
Do you think that this God, real quick, because we're already getting off track? Do you think that this God existed before the United States of America existed?
Yeah, I think God has always existed.
Cool. Then let's just find out your reasons for why you think that God has always existed and why you think that God exists at all. I don't want a story. I don't want to.
I was in the process of making that point in regards to the practical application for Christian morals. The Bible teaches that we have a responsibility to God and to our fellow man.
Yeah.
Wow,
Tim,
you guys
this is the
keep
thing, man.
Interrupting me. I can't make my point.
Yes, because Tim, Tim, we're interrupting you because you keep not answering the question properly. Whether or not like anybody believed in this God doesn't mean that it's true. Whether or not this God is useful doesn't mean that it's true. Whether or not the morals of the Bible are good or true or useful doesn't mean that the God is real. Like this, we just want to we want you to tell us why you believe in this God, not why you like the God, not why the God is useful. None of that. Just why do you think it's real?
Okay. I'm trying to answer you guys. Okay. I brought up the Declaration of Independence because I think that the existence of God is self-evident, and that just the fact that Jesus said his will for my life and everyone's life is that we treat people the way we want to be treated. We have the golden rule. That's one of the reasons.
Every other religion has the golden rule. Every other religion has the golden rule. Lots of non-religious, like secular philosophies have the golden rule or something very close to it, or even something better than it. So, like, that doesn't really get us anywhere.
I don't want to be treated.
The golden rule?
I'll tell you right now. I'm about to write it for you. What's better than being? I don't want to treat Forrest how I want to be treated. I want to treat Forrest how he wants to be treated. So there, already better than the golden rule. We can call it diamond or something.
The platinum rule. Yeah.
Okay. I think that you guys, when you read the Bible and you read the philosophy or the wisdom of Jesus and what Scripture has to say, that you distort what the plain meaning of the Scriptures are saying in regards to our conduct towards our fellow
man. Are you going
to
answer my question? Why do you think that God exists? We don't even have to get to the Bible yet. Why do you think that a God exists?
Because morality
this should have
is real.
nothing to do. So because morality is real. What do you mean by that?
Yes. Well, morality actually exists. It's a spiritual entitlement that everybody has.
What's your evidence?
I just want to throw out there. I just want to throw out there, though, like the thing you just said a second ago is that when we read the Bible, we are distorting it and not seeing the truth of it and the literal. I think you said something along the lines of like the plain reading. I don't remember your exact wording, but I'm 99% sure you said something about like just the simple text on the page guides you to this morality. Is that? Did you say something like that? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I think that you're making it unnecessarily complicated. When the Bible says you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself, that means that you want to treat God's will for you to treat people in a just fashion.
Tim, not here for a sermon, man. If you remember the last call with Brian that we just ended, we did a plain text reading of the Bible, didn't interpret it in any particular way, just plain the black and white words on the page. God said, here's where you get slaves from, and they are your property forever to be passed down to your children. Can you please explain to me how I'm misinterpreting that and coming up with something immoral?
Whoa, what's happening? I just heard a couple beeps. So the last part of what you just said cut out. You brought up slavery, though. And I think
let me repeat it because you didn't hear it. That's fine. I will repeat it. As you heard in the last call, we did a plain black and white text on the page reading of the Bible, and we found a passage where God himself says, here's where you buy slaves from. You can own slaves forever. They are your property for life, and you can pass them down to your children. That is not our interpretation. That's black and white text on the page. Please tell us how we are misinterpreting that and coming up with something immoral.
No, I think that you've got that particular scripture correct. I mean, God did allow slavery and give them instructions in the Old Testament on what the rules were.
Then God is evil.
No. Okay, well, I can understand how you would say that, but you're not looking at the bigger picture.
Person.
You have to be willing to see beyond the trees to acknowledge the forest, if you will.
Tim, can you please tell me the big picture? Hold on. Tim, no, you may not. Tim, can you please tell me the big picture that makes slavery acceptable?
Right. So slavery is not God's idea. It's the devil's idea. Okay?
Who's more powerful, God or the devil?
Charge. Yes,
Who's more powerful, God or the devil?
In the Old Testament, after the fall of man, this is what the Bible reveals.
Who is more powerful, God or the devil?
Well, God is more powerful.
And so God had to use the idea of someone less powerful than him to allow humans to enslave each other. Not even allow them, but tell them how to do it. The devil came up with the idea of slavery. God, who is more powerful, said, not only am I not going to stop that, I'm going to tell people to do it more. God is evil.
Right. Well, the overarching issue is the Advent, the first Advent, and bringing Christ into the world. Okay, so God had to
Were
allow
human beings
certain
around before Christ?
compromises.
Were humans around before Christ? Were human beings
Were
around
who?
before Christ? Were
Oh,
human
no, of
beings
course.
around before Jesus Christ?
Yes, yes. of
Were
course.
those humans? Did God love those humans?
Yes, he did. In
Was
fact, God
God
loves his
moral
enemies.
before? Was God moral before
Yes,
Jesus
God
Christ?
is morality. Yeah, God is
And
morality.
yet,
Okay, so why the
before the
question is a
time of
good
Jesus
one.
Christ, and yet
Listen,
before the
your
time of
question.
Jesus Christ, God, I swear to God, dude, I don't want to put you on mute. You need to behave. This is our show, not yours. Before the time of Jesus Christ, God commanded slavery. God told people how to own slaves and that they can be your property. So if you're saying that in the time of Jesus Christ things change, which no, it fucking didn't, by the way, if you're saying that's the case, then why is it that God was okay with slavery and allowed slavery and commanded slavery and condoned slavery and ordered people to own slaves up until a certain point? Why is slavery conditionally acceptable and not just wholly immoral?
Yeah, because people have free will, and God can't change everything overnight and change
so God's
people's
not all
hearts. They
powerful?
have,
Is God all powerful?
God is all powerful, but he can't
Then he could change
violate.
things overnight.
Can I
Because
step in
if you
for a second?
remember, if I can just really quickly, God can change everything overnight. Literally, in a couple of books before the slavery thing, he drowned the entire planet, including all of the pregnant women and babies and all the other animals in the whole world, because he didn't like them and regretted having made them. So yes, he
Well,
can
no,
change
that's
everything
a
overnight. If he's
mischaracterization of what the Bible says
that is
about the flood.
literally what
You're
the
not
Bible
looking at
says in plain
Forrest,
text.
you guys won't
Again,
even let
that
me
is
speak.
not my interpretation, and now I'm going to mute you again. Jim, this is not your fucking show, and I'm sick of you being dishonest. We don't have time for it. I'm giving you direct questions. I want direct answers so we can move quickly. That is a plain text reading of the Bible. God says, I will destroy all humans across the face of the earth and all other animals that have breath in their nostrils on the whole planet because I regret making them. That is what the Bible says. That is not my interpretation. Promise. I'm sorry I've been rambling for so long. What is your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask him if he believes that God took the time to make very specific demands throughout the Bible, telling people things that they should or shouldn't do.
Truth.
Do you, Tim, do you think
Yes.
do you think that God took the time to point out some very specific things to tell people that they should or shouldn't do certain things?
Yes, of course he did.
Okay, so why do
Ten
you think that
Commandments is
God
still is a
so
good
why
example of
I'm
that.
still talking. Why do you think God didn't take the time to say, "Hey, also do not own people as slaves"?
Well, that particular issue is covered in the New Covenant, in which we are to love our neighbors, we love ourselves.
I'm asking again because do you think God knew that years and
No,
years
you want
later,
it?
Christians, Tim, I'm in the middle of talking. Do you think that God knew years and years later, people were going to use the Bible to own a mass amount of people in the United States of America, and they would use the Bible to back that? Do you think God knew that was going to happen? Yes or no?
I think God knew it was a possibility.
He knew it was a
Oh, so he
possibility.
doesn't know
Okay,
everything.
so Tim, let's just go with it. That's fine. Why did God not have Jesus explicitly say, by the way, it's really bad to own people as slaves. Don't do it. Why instead did he go on to allow Paul to say, slaves, obey your masters, knowing that that would be used to keep other human beings enslaved for years and years and years?
Yeah. Slavery is a very difficult issue, as is the flood.
It's not
Okay?
difficult
No,
at
it's
all,
not.
Tim.
No,
It's wrong and it's
no,
evil
I'm
and
not
it's
finished.
gross.
Look,
And it's
every
evil
time I
and
go to
gross
answer
that
your
you keep
question, you cut
defending
me
it.
off.
You didn't answer my question, Tim. You just said, yeah, it's complex. It's not complex.
It's super not.
Yeah,
It's just
it is
wrong.
a complex.
Period.
It is a complex situation, and
Okay.
those are
Then Gary,
difficult
will you
areas
please
of the
tell me?
scripture
Well,
to make it.
Gary, will you please tell me when exactly is slavery moral? When is the time that it's good? If it's a complex thing, so tell me when it's good.
Yeah, the only time I think that slavery would be morally acceptable is in some sort of indentured servitude when somebody commits a crime. Let's say caught stealing cars, that when they go to jail, they should be forced to work.
Yes. So we're
Yeah, that's
talking
the only
about
time I think
owning
that
people
slavery-
as property here. We're not talking about indentured servitude.
Right.
We're talking about
Okay.
owning people as property and passing
And-
them on to your children.
And why
I don't think
didn't
that
Jesus, why do you think that Jesus didn't see that, or God, whatever you want to say, God didn't see that coming and see that the Bible was going to be used to reinforce horrific activity and say, hey, let me just clarify real quick that it's not okay to own other people as slaves? Why did he take the time to do that about certain other things, but not about this?
Yeah, I think. Do you want an answer? It'll take me, more than 2 sentences to answer you before.
You could have
I'm
answered
finished. So if you
one
cut me
sentence
off-
by now already.
Well, if you cut me off, see, you don't want to be interrupted, and I'm trying to answer your question.
It's not your
You won't
show,
let me.
Tim.
Tim, I'm
Gary.
going to set a
I
timer for
understand
1
that.
minute.
Bitching.
I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute. Ready? Here, where's your answer?
Yeah, God, human beings fell into sin, and this started a cavalcade of bad circumstances in which God was not being honored. And he doesn't force his will upon people. And so slavery was an inconvenient reality that God had to deal with in the Old Testament and in the New. And he allowed it, but he commands all men to repent, believe, and obey, which means that you're going to love your neighbor as you love yourself. The fact that slavery was and Christians in America owned slaves is I think, an abomination to God. He hated it, and there was a huge war in America, and we paid a huge price for it. But after the war, people were set free. And this is due to the influence of Christianity, genuine Christianity, on America. Okay, thanks for letting me finish.
Cool.
Am I on the
So
phone?
I'm really disappointed because you didn't answer my question. So I want to ask it one more time and see if you can answer it. Why do you think
I didn't
God,
answer your
Jesus,
question the way
Tim,
you wanted
I'm
it
gonna,
answered, but I
Tim,
answered the
I'm gonna,
question.
Tim, I'm going to ask you again. Why do you think God took the time to give answers and to give orders about very specific things? For example, why do you think God took the time to say, love your neighbor as yourself, which we already said that I can say that better by saying, love your neighbor the way that they want to be loved and cared for? So why did he take the time to say things like that? Why did he allow Paul to say things like, slaves, obey your masters? Why did he not take the time to correct that? When he did take the time to say other things, why did he not take the time to say, do not own other humans as slaves?
Because the influence of Christianity had not grown in strength so that it would affect civil government and the laws. The Roman Empire was a very brutal.
There it is.
So Tim,
there it is.
Tim,
Tim.
let me give you an example. Why
What
did
did I
God take the
say?
time to, why did God take the time to say, thou shalt not kill, and did not take the time to say, thou shalt not own other humans as slaves?
Well, that's a good question. My answer
think it
would be
is.
that. Well, I think it's a good question. I would say that my answer would be that God is all knowing in that He knows what is going to need to be commanded of the Israelites to keep the Israel nation, or the nation of Israel, going in a proper direction so that He could come into the world.
So he needed
Is
slavery
any
to
Slavery
come
was
nation-
into the
something that
world.
God allowed. Yeah, slavery was
it's
something
not. First of all,
that God allowed.
it's not something that he allowed. It's not something he allowed. It's something he commanded. Also, your entire argument here is it's utilitarian. He allowed and commanded slavery so that Israel could become big enough and powerful enough to then have some influence. If he's really the God of the Bible, he can give them that power and influence without needing slaves to do it. If you're going to sit here and seriously say that slavery was good because it was useful for a time and it served its purpose, you're just as evil as your God, especially considering the fact that in the same book in Leviticus, I made sure to go pull up this passage here. This is in Leviticus 10. You've got two kids, the sons of Aaron, who put the wrong fire in an incense burner. They were little priesty, what do you call, altar boys or whatever. They put the wrong fire, the wrong incense into the little incense burner of God. And so God spewed fire out of it and consumed them in fire. He burned 2 children alive because they put the wrong incense in the fucking sacred incense burner thing. And then the next part is he tells their parents they are not allowed to grieve them. Do not cover your heads. Do not rend your clothes. Do not grieve the loss of your children, or I will kill you and your entire community as well. That's what God says. So God sees 2 kids put the wrong incense in a fucking incense burner, kills them, and commands their parents not to grieve their loss. But he cannot say, hey, guess what? Don't own slaves. He can say, don't eat shellfish. He can say, don't touch the skin of a dead pig. He can say, don't cut the sides of your hair and beard. He can tell you what fabrics to wear. He can tell you what crops to plant. But he cannot tell you, don't keep slaves, because he's too weak to build a community, to build an empire without slavery. Shame on you and shame on your worthless piece of shit God, Gary.
Okay,
I was going to call him Tim again. I was going to call him Tim again, but I keep forgetting that he's not fucking Tim.
Well, that is my name. Not Gary. It's okay. You can call me whatever you want.
Everybody in the chat is pretty convinced that you're actually Gary, the Darth Dawkins guy, or you're just a shitty clone of him.
No, I've been accused of being Darth Dawkins too. I'm not Darth Dawkins. Okay, so the two
you have not started crying yet, so I suppose you're not.
The 2 young men who were burnt to death by God were drunk, and if you read the text and read the narrative. Well,
where does it say that? And why does that make it okay?
You know what? I haven't read it over 2 years. So, you know,
let's say they're drunk. Let's go with it. Let's go with it. They're super drunk. They're on drugs. They're terrible people. Tell me why God took the time to care about that and not about the millions and millions and millions of people whose lives would be ruined because other people would own them as slaves and use the Bible to defend it.
Yeah, you guys are throwing a number of issues at me, and all that are, you know,
it's really just one issue. One issue.
I'm sorry, you both were talking at the same time. I didn't hear you promise. What'd you say?
It's one issue.
It's one issue.
Okay, the morality of God, right? That's the issue you're trying to get at. Is God
slavery is bad. Slavery is bad, and any nation that needs slavery to become prosperous isn't worth keeping. It's a bad nation.
You're missing my answer to this question. My answer to this question, which is a good one, is that there is a wider, broader, deeper issue that God is dealing with, and He allowed slavery in the Old Testament, and He allowed it to continue in the New Testament because we have free will. And God's love
slavery
for people
is not a big deal.
No, slavery is a big deal. No, you're right.
Not that big of a deal. Just not that big of a deal. God's got bigger to deal with. God's got bigger titties to lick, so He doesn't have time for slavery. I get it. We've all been there. You got to let some slavery happen because you got bigger shit going on. We got it.
No,
you're just so busy. You're so busy. You got so many things to go on in your life that you're like, you know what, y'all? You need to own slaves because I've got things going on in my life. Fuck your God, dude.
Well, I think that you're getting God wrong. You read the Bible like you would read Mein Kampf, and it's just not true. You're making God out to be the bad guy when in fact it's human beings that are the problem.
Of the Bible.
But Tim, also here we go. Like we've got, I'm. You know, the show's over, so we got to let you go. But I'm disappointed in this call because the main question I asked you was, how do you know this God is real? We never even got to that. We just got to, if this God is real, He's horrible. And not only that, you would defend His horribleness. And that's really sad. If you want to call back sometime with your actual evidence for why you think this God even exists to begin with, then maybe we can move on after that to why you would defend these terrible actions. But I don't have anything left.
I tried to give you a rational answer in the beginning of the phone call. You guys interrupted me a lot. One of the reasons I cling to the God of the Bible is the pristine nature of the commands of God that I should love my neighbor.
And also the part where he commanded slavery.
But also, don't you agree that my law is better, which is to treat your neighbor how they want to be treated, not how.
Would you
I don't want to be treated.
Adolf Hitler?
Yes.
Okay, so should I treat Adolf Hitler the way Adolf Hitler wants to be treated, or shall I just apply common sense and understand that Adolf is completely off the map and he was crazy and he should have been put to death?
Oh my glob, dude!
Earliest.
It doesn't mean you have to sacrifice. It doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your entire society for the good of one sociopath. It means that sociopath has the same basic human rights as everybody else, because they're not rights if they're conditional.
Yes, well, even Adolf Hitler, being a creature of God, has rights.
It's human rights,
but
not as a creature of God, as a human being.
Also, Tim, how come Hitler, if he takes the law, treat others how you want to be treated? How does that play out? If he thinks that treating people means that because you're white means you get to be treated better than everybody else. I don't want to be following that rule. If anything, you're showing that rule is shit, and that almost any better version of it is still only a little bit better, because in general, these are not very wise words, and we can already say so much better things by abandoning the book that doesn't even take the time to condemn one of the worst things in history that it fully supported for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Well, it is condemned under the second law to love your neighbor as you love yourself. That would be a violation.
Then why did Paul go on to say, slaves, obey your masters?
Right, because they were living under the Roman Empire and Christianity had not yet
because once again, politics supersedes the rule of God.
Right. This is the weakest, worst God ever.
Tim,
I think he's a great God.
If Hitler repented,
loving your neighbor as you love yourself is a perfect.
Tim, if Hitler repented sincerely before he killed himself, is he in heaven right now? Does Hitler get to go to heaven? He was a Christian.
Want to hear them? You want to hear my view?
I just asked you a question. I pre-answer it.
Okay. Hitler, people like Hitler harden their hearts against God. And there comes a point if you do enough evil, if you do enough evil that you're not going to repent. Hitler never repented. And all of this depends on one's response to God. If you were
what if that's why
up to your
what if that's
eyeballs
why he killed himself? What if that's why he killed himself? What if he was so full of regret and he repented so hardly that he was just mortified with himself, he couldn't live with himself anymore, and that's why he killed himself? What if he truly, sincerely, 100% repented and gave? I'm asking you a hypothetical fucking question, Tim. Try to keep up. If he completely, purely, honestly, sincerely repented and gave his life to Jesus, did he go to heaven?
I don't think that that's possible for a person like Adolf Hitler.
So then God's love is not perfect, and God's promise of eternal life for anybody who confesses that Jesus is Lord is not an honest promise. And your God is a weak, useless liar, and you are a dishonest interlocutor who cannot address a simple fucking question and cannot come to morality, the grips with morality.
I don't believe Hitler. I think people can become. Let me answer it this way, Forrest.
Now, I'm not interested. I'll be honest with you, man. You haven't been sincere about this entire thing, and I really don't want more of a sermon from you. Promise. Do you care about what Trim is saying?
No, I'm ready to end the show, and I'm not down to listen to somebody defend more horrific things. So,
yeah, slavery is okay as long as it benefits Israel.
Yeah, if Tim wants to call back and tell us what the evidence for this God's existence is, like I said earlier, that's fine. I don't really want to hear him defend one of the worst characters I've ever heard of. So
I also want to throw out there, just before we drop him, Tim, this is also, by the way, this whole what strengthens Israel shit, same fucking thing that justifies the genocide in Palestine right now. So you've got real world examples that are contemporaneous with you, like real current events that fall under the same horrible, immoral bullshit that you're spewing right now. The things you say not only justify slavery, but have been used to justify rape, murder, and currently genocide. So I hope that keeps you up at night, although I don't think it fucking will.
Well, I think that we should endeavor to love one another just like God.
Is the
says
is
that
the
we should.
hey,
In the Bible,
is the genocide in Palestine wrong? Is the genocide in Palestine wrong? Should it be stopped?
No, I think that most wars today are wrong. Okay.
Should we stop the genocide in Palestine?
They're being fought.
Can you say free Palestine, Tim? Tim, can you say free Palestine?
I'm sorry. Can I say free Palestine?
Yeah.
I don't think that the Jews should be in the land. And so, yeah, I think that the.
So the genocide in Palestine is wrong? Can you denounce genocide in Palestine?
I think the Palestinians. I think that there's good evidence that the Palestinians are being abused by people who call themselves Jews.
Can you say that the genocide in Palestine is wrong and we should stop the genocide in Palestine, Tim?
All genocide is wrong.
Is genocide in Palestine particularly wrong? Do you believe there's genocide in Palestine that is wrong?
Yes, of course it is, Forrest.
There we go. See, it took a long time to get there. Now let's do the same thing again. Is slavery wrong? You say slavery is wrong?
Yes, slavery is wrong.
Yeah, is it ever okay, ever, forever? Under any circumstances ever, is slavery okay?
You mean, is it okay in the Old Testament? There were bigger issues that had to be accomplished.
Ever. Is it ever okay?
Right. Yeah, I think that slavery in the Old Testament and the beginning of the New Testament was allowed.
You can't do it. He can't do it. He just can't do it. You sincerely can't do it.
Tim,
it's crazy.
I'm ready.
You said all genocide's wrong. What about the time that God commanded genocide? Was it wrong to kill the Amalekites, every man, woman, child, baby, infant, and also all their livestock? Was that wrong? Was that wrong, Tim?
Yeah, I think that the genocide that was committed by the Israelites, and there was only one instance in the whole Old Testament of the wars and the campaigns.
Was it wrong?
Can I answer?
Tim, can
was
you
it
just
wrong?
give a yes or no, and then you can give it
I think
or a no, and
it's not that simple. It's not that simple.
No. Yeah, I'm over it.
It's
Have a good one,
I'm
Tim.
done. I'm done. I'm having fun with it. He literally can't do it. Yes. No, genocide is always wrong. It's always evil. It's always terrible. What about when God would it? Well, you don't understand. Is slavery always wrong? Is it always bad? Ever okay? Well, you see the Old Testament. You don't it's so good to just see him hit that fucking wall. You dishonest fuck. I was going to say you're better than your God, but I don't think Tim is.
I don't know. The problem is it takes people and it makes them defend really horrible stuff. But the fact that he wouldn't answer directly makes me think he is better than his God, because he knows there's a part of him that has to, get a little like, well, no, it's not quite that bad, because he knows that it's really that fucking bad. And if he would have just been honest, we could have gotten to that point. Or if he had just answered my original question, which he can go back and listen to that call and see where he blatantly doesn't do that, which I wanted to know why he believes that a God even exists. So anyways, it's been a show. I hope you guys will go subscribe to the new YouTube channel for our podcast. I'm so excited about that coming out. Thank you, Forrest, and thank you, Arden, and our rest of our crew, our mods, screeners. You all are the best. And don't forget, The Line has a podcast.
Bye. We're just here. We're just trapped here in this
Out
nightmare.
in this
We're
endless...
just trapped here.
I've just escaped from Forrest Valkai's wine cellar. Before he finds me, I just have to tell you, The Line has a podcast. Oh, God!